Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman here with you guys to talk about every game that we have seen so far in the Week 13 slate in the NFL, which includes some holiday games that we had last week. Hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Appreciate you tuning into the show here live if you're in on the chat. Excited to go back and forth with you guys. Talk about a lot of very interesting games. Dalton, how you doing today, my friend?
Fantastic. I'll tell you what, football teaches us many things every weekend, right? And it was another good weekend. But let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Max yesterday.
Let's hear it.
If you dare plant a flag on my side of the desk, there will be hands thrown. There will be hands thrown. There are no flags allowed on this side of the desk.
Look, it's an NFL show. We love the NFL. The NFL is king in a lot of ways, right? I would say that the NFL dominates most of the sports calendar year. I will fully admit that, and I love the fact that that is the case. But the best weekend in football is rivalry weekend in college football. And I think that this weekend absolutely lived up to it. If you guys have not seen the recap show with Dalton and Max, it's fantastic. They talk about all the great games that happen in rivalry weekend. But we're not here to talk about college. We'll get into some NFL draft talk, so we'll talk a little bit of college in a little bit later. But we do have to talk about all these games because no bye weeks this week, Dalton. So there's a full slate of games all the way through. We will get back to the holiday games, but since there's been a couple of days to really talk about those, we'll save those for the end of the show. Before we get going, though, I did want to say today is the last day for the PFF holiday sale that we had for Black Friday. Score 35 gets you a 35% discount on a PFF Plus subscription. You type that in as the promo code SCORE35. This is a fantastic deal, folks. It's not just all the premium stats that you're going to hear us talk about on this show. It's not just the data points for in-season stuff. It's also the fantasy football tools, the NFL draft tools, the free agency tools, everything. It is a subscription that you will use throughout the entire year. I just mentioned that the NFL is king, dominates the sports calendar. So it is a PFF Plus subscription. So score 35. Get yourself 35% off if you don't have a subscription yet. Let's start with Sunday Night Football because I think there's some higher level takeaways that we need to have beyond just the score of the Buffalo Bills defeating the San Francisco 49ers in what was a beautiful blizzard game. We've had a couple of these over the last couple of weeks, and as Jameis Winston said, an NFL films type of a game because anytime the weather's playing that much of a role, everybody kind of is heightened. They want to play well. They want to win the game well. Buffalo really took care of business in their home field. 35-10 was the final score. As we do with every single game, let's reveal the grades by looking at the top 5 players, starting with the Buffalo Bills because they won the game. Spencer Brown, their offensive tackle, was the highest graded player in this one with a 90.0 overall grade. Tight end Dawson Knox with an 84.7. Defensive tackle Daquan Jones an 83.4. Cornerback Christian Benford a 79.3. Safety Taylor Rapp a 77.9. And then Josh Allen, one more game towards an MVP campaign. We'll get into that in a second, an 80.7 overall grade. As for the losers in this one, the San Francisco 49ers, Dominic Pooney, their rookie guard, still having a fantastic season even through the struggles with an 89.3 overall grade. Edge rusher Evan Anderson, your boy, Dalton.
FAU legend.
FAU legend, 83.1 overall grade. Offensive guard Ben Barch with a 78.4. Wide receiver Jawan Jennings a 77.0. Linebacker Devondre Campbell a 75.2. And then quarterback Brock Purdy in this one really struggled in the elements. And the 49ers are kind of just going in the wrong direction. He had a 46.4 overall grade in this one. As we do, we'll start every segment talking about the stat that told the story. Dalton, what do we got?
All right, so when it's cold and it's snowing and it's all the elements and we're playing winter football, every coach wants to run the ball.
Of course.
And the Bills ran the living hell out of the ball last night.
They did.
35 carries, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Their best run blocking grade of the season, their second best rushing grade of the season. And something I want to get into here about Joe Brady. The Bills, ever since he became their offensive coordinator, they have put an extra offensive lineman on the field on 16.9% of their plays. All right. Only one other team in that spans, that's since I think week 11 of last year, is over 10%. Okay, this is what the Bills, this is a weapon, especially on early downs that they used last night. It was Alec Anderson, number 70. Last year, I think it was Spencer Brown a lot as the 6th guy. They put an extra offensive lineman out there instead of an extra tight end just to get a little more of that just meat and potatoes kind of thing on the field on their offensive line.
It is Thanksgiving overall, meat and potatoes.
It's the right weekend for it. It's the duo schemes, right? The man duo schemes up front where they just run right downhill at you. The only team that runs more is the Rams, and they've completely reinvented their run game over the last 2 years. But this is something that is not going away. 15 of their 38 run plays last night, and really 15 out of 35 because it was 3 kneel downs, had an extra offensive lineman on the field. 8.1 yards per carry with a 6th offensive lineman out there, including James Cook's long touchdown in the first quarter. This is just, the Bills were prepared for this. And I think part of the magic of Joe Brady is being able to adjust this team week to week however he needs to, right? If they need to spread it out and beat man coverage with one-on-one matchups, cool. If they need to go screen heavy, cool. If they need to line up an extra O-lineman and 12 personnel or however you want to do it, the Bills have all the personnel to do this. They may not we've talked about all year, they may not have Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill or that number 1 guy like that, but they have so many different threats and so many different avenues of success on offense. This is just another one. They can get in the snow. They've got a 240-pound quarterback. They've got 2, if not 3 good running backs. They got extra linemen, and they get creative even if the run game is just a downhill kind of beat you up sort of run game, right? There's still a creative thing about it. And of course, they're leading the league this year in percentage of plays with an extra offensive lineman. Second behind them is the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton, right? Where was Joe Brady back in 2017, 2018? The New Orleans Saints with Sean Payton, and they ran a top 5 rate of having an extra offensive lineman out there. Clearly, it's something he's taken from Sean Payton. Now, he didn't use it when he was running the passing game at LSU because they had all his weapons. I'm not putting linemen out there over Jefferson and Chase, right? When you have that weaponry. But this is something that he's always had in his back pocket. And with this team and as balanced as they are, they can use that. They lined up 6 offensive linemen on the field against San Francisco last night, and they just mauled them on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, they are my most impressive. For a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, they're getting creative and they're using their guys in the right way. It's not just the overall output that they have either. It's also just the efficiency of it. Very high EPA per rush averages. So, when you talk about, when we bring up EPA per rush, it's a little bit better contextually than just like talking about certain yards because, EPA is like, all right, well, if you have a 3rd and 2, for example, 3rd and 2 situation. Well, if you rush for 4 yards, well, it's only 4 yards, right? But you are getting closer to adding points on the scoreboard. You are doing your job. You are converting there. So those are an important 4 yards. It's not just 4 random rushing yards that gets you a lot closer to the goal. So the statistic of expected points added per play or per rush in this regard is a better way to judge, okay, how efficient are you on the ground? Positive EPA per rush at any point in time, because it is more difficult to get a positive EPA output when you are rushing than it is passing, just because passing, it's got a higher ceiling, you score more points naturally. The Buffalo Bills last night, 0.204 expected points average per rush. I mean, that is just a fantastic number. And they've got the diversity in the run game too. James Cook, 7.6 yards per carry average. Obviously, the 65-yard run helps there. But Ray Davis, 5.7 yards per carry average. Ty Johnson, 5.6. Josh Allen himself, 6.0. So they have so many different ways that they can attack you on the ground. And that's what I love the most about this Buffalo Bills team and why they feel like the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL. I shouldn't say the most because there's a couple of others that are right there in that tier 1. But Buffalo is in that tier 1 because they can beat you on offense in so many different ways. Not only do they have a MVP frontrunner, in my opinion, playing the quarterback position, who is a dual threat guy in and of himself, the running backs are diverse. The offensive line's kicking ass. The wide receivers, or I should just say receivers in general, there's so many different types of players that can beat you every single week, especially with Amari Cooper now out there. I said this 2 weeks ago. I am even more confident saying it now. This is one of the most balanced offensive attacks in the NFL. I think the only one that is more balanced is probably Detroit, right? I mean, it's just Buffalo and Detroit right now. They feel like they're on a collision course to the Super Bowl. I would love to see that matchup if these guys are playing well, and we're at least going to see one more home game in Buffalo, because with this win last night, they locked up the division title already with, oh my goodness, what do we have left? 5 games to go.
First team since 2009 to do that.
I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. So the Chiefs, they clinched a playoff spot with their win this past week against the Raiders, but the Bills clinched the division and another home game. My stat that told the story real quick, 49ers turnovers. I mean, this is a team that is not playing very well right now. We know that. The vibes don't feel great. They're going through a lot of injuries, obviously missing a lot of stars in this game as well as over the last couple of weeks. But 3 fumbles lost. Anytime that's going to be the case, it's going to be really hard to beat a team like Buffalo, especially in Buffalo with the conditions the way that they were and all the injuries that you got. So the only real chance that the Niners had in this game, if they were going to play a clean football game and win the turnover battle, they absolutely did not, and I think the scoreboard reflected.
Yeah, no, the Bills right now, look, the Chiefs have the best record. The Chiefs are the two-time defending champs, but the Bills are playing the best football in the AFC. I think that's what needs to be said. And if they do get the 1 seed and we get more of these conditions through all their home games in January, and they've obviously been through so much pain in the last, 4 years of postseason runs, but I think now this Bills team, you can see Josh Allen feels like the leader of this team, of a team that really, like you mentioned, has so many weapons. I think the only thing that still concerns me, even coming out of this game, is their run defense, say, in a potential matchup against the Ravens. And the Chiefs with their interior front and Pacheco healthy can run it too, but they're getting Matt Milano back, or they just got him back last night. He got his feet wet, seriously, in the snow. But no, I think that's a huge piece, because that was really the biggest concern for me, was their linebackers, right? And look, Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams did a good enough job, obviously. They're 10-2, right? But I think with Milano back as really one of the leaders of their defense, if he can get healthy and really get into a rhythm here on that side, you're talking about a serious Super Bowl threat with the Bills.
My most disappointing, the Christian McCaffrey injury sucks. I mean, it's just injuries overall for the San Francisco 49ers. This is not the same team that we projected to make the playoffs once again at the beginning of the season. They've gone through a lot of injuries. They've struggled even when their stars have been out there. Even earlier on in the season, they were pretty poor in run defense, even when a lot of those guys were out there. So it's not like, wow, they were world beaters before the injuries. They were struggling even before the injuries. But you talk about the guys that weren't in this one, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, guys that are playing hurt. Fred Warner, he's been playing hurt this season. A lot of guys have been playing hurt. Brock Purdy has missed time. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk is out for the year. There's a lot of guys that are really going through a lot of injuries and that mean a lot to this team. Christian McCaffrey missed so much time at the beginning of the year with that Achilles injury. And now it looks like he's going to miss the rest of the season with a PCL injury. And so it just sucks. I mean, it's one of the best offensive players in the NFL. He's so much fun to watch. To me, what's most disappointing is what maybe could have been with this 49ers team and all the injuries that they're having to go through, specifically now with McCaffrey likely done for the year.
Agree with you there with the Niners as most disappointing. And I think you're looking at now, you're pretty close. If you haven't stuck a fork in them already, you're pretty close to doing it. They would have to win their last 5 games, and it's some combination of Lions, Bears, Dolphins, Rams, and Cardinals. That's hard to see them going 5-0 in that stretch. And 2 games back of the division lead, 2.5 out of a wild card. It looks like the Niners, barring a miracle, are just about done. And real quick, just most impressive for me, Dawson Knox at tight end. Dalton Kincaid was out last night, and Knox has been relegated over the last year to that number 2 role, kind of the blocking tight end role. 2 big catches in the passing game. Run blocking was really good, 82.2 run blocking grade. He was, again, part of that. If you have a 6 offensive lineman out there and you have Dawson Knox out there, it's almost like having 7. So he's definitely still a useful player, despite Kincaid becoming more of the receiving threat. And obviously he's a versatile receiving threat, but Knox still has a role on this team, and he played really well last night.
All right, moving on. Next game, let's go to the Steelers-Bengals. This game was on the road for the Steelers, but they are victorious here in Cincinnati, 44-38, a high-scoring AFC North affair. We don't get that a lot in this matchup, but the Steelers come away with the big one, scoring 44 points and beating out the Bengals and their 38 points. Pittsburgh's top 5 graded players on the day as they got the victory. Edge rusher Nick Herbig. Man, we talk about Cam Hayward and TJ Watt for having a fantastic year, but what a difference Nick Herbig has been for them this season, as I don't even want to call it a situational pass rusher, but they're putting him in such great positions to where and another elite grade for this guy, 91.9 elite grade in this past game. He had a big-time strip sack, beating Orlando Brown Jr. around the left tackle, and beat him so cleanly, like Orlando Brown Jr. couldn't even get out there. And just an unbelievable rep from Nick Herbig. It feels like he has been playing at this level all season long. Fantastic defensive line work for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I guess, what else is new for them, but just taking it to another level this season. Anyways, Peyton Wilson, their rookie linebacker, he's number 2 on this list, 82.2. Cam Hayward, the ageless one, it feels like 79.7. Guard Mason McCormick, a 79.6. And defensive tackle Keanu Benton, 78.9. Quarterback Russell Wilson earned a 78.6 overall grade in this one. We'll break down his performance a little bit more in a second. On Cincinnati's side of things, the grade's not so high. Cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt with a 78.4. Wide receiver Andre Yosevich with a 71.7. Wide receiver T. Higgins a 69.5. Tight end Mike Gesicki a 69.0. Center Ted Karras with a 66.6. Joe Burrow, this is where it really stings. Another fantastic performance for Joe Burrow. 87.8 overall grade in this one. Burrow's having an MVP season. Bengals play a little bit better around him. I mean, we're talking about him and Josh Allen neck and neck for MVP right now. And we should be. And unfortunately, we're not. And unfortunately, it's just a lot of shows and podcasts and articles saying, man, if only the Bengals were playing better. I wish that didn't matter so much towards MVP voting, but it sort of is what it is, and unfortunately it makes it sting. But what's your stat that told the story here for this game?
Speaking of Burrow, and Russell Wilson had a great day too. Neither one of these teams could cover a soul. Now, this is something we've known about.
Clearly, 44-38.
Right.
Clearly.
And we have known this about the Bengals all year. So the beat goes on, a 48 coverage grade for them as a team, and without the Cam Taylor-Britt pick six at the very beginning, outside of that play, a 41.8, which is admittedly atrocious.
Yeah.
One forced incompletion. 12 explosive pass plays allowed on the Cincinnati side. I mean, it feels like somehow it gets worse every week.
Yeah.
Right? And it just gets more drastic that Burrow's going to have by far the greatest season ever of a team with a losing record. And then you look at the Steelers side here, 37.1 coverage grade, 8 explosive pass plays allowed. Now, I know they're playing Burrow and Chase and Higgins and all this, but this is starting to get to be a trend here with Pittsburgh. We saw in the Browns game where in crunch time they couldn't really cover. They run a good amount of single high and man coverage, cover one, that sort of thing. And you just have to wonder if there comes a day later on in the postseason where if their defensive line doesn't completely dominate like they did again, can they hold up on the back end against the Bills and against the Ravens as well as they did the first time around, or against even Mahomes in Kansas City? I mean, I think it's the big lingering question even more right now than the offense, because they've looked fine on offense for the most part with Russell Wilson in there. The run game comes and goes, but I think this version of their offensive line is gelling a little bit better. I think we have to start to maybe worry a little bit about the Steelers secondary. They're going to the playoffs. They very well could win the division. They've got, I think, a game and a half advantage now there, but you're looking at this Steelers secondary going, okay, if you don't have an elite pass rush just on one day, can you keep up with elite receivers and elite passing games on the outside?
Yeah. I mean, I want to focus on the Bengals side of things because I think I agree with you with the defensive struggles that they have in coverage. 48.3 coverage grade overall in this game, 0.397 EPA per pass allowed. That was 30th in the NFL this week. Cam Taylor-Britt was the only defensive player with a coverage grade above 60. Everybody else had a coverage grade below 60. Normally when I'm talking about a defense struggling in coverage, I'll say, only one or two players had a coverage grade above 70. 60 is different. I mean, 60 is just bad across the board, and it has felt like this whole season we've been waiting for the Bengals defense to bounce back, right? Think about how bad things started out for them, specifically on the defensive line, when the defensive line was really struggling, when we were talking about, hey, it's Trey Hendrickson and where's the help? And we've sort of been waiting for this Bengals defense, who has a lot of the same names that they had when they were having a lot of success in the 2-3 years prior. A couple of big names are gone, and I don't want to make it sound like like DJ Reader not being anymore, Jesse Bates not being anymore. It's not like oh yeah, these guys aren't there. It's fine, no worries about it. Those are really good football players. But I'm saying that we're 13 weeks into the year now. The Bengals defense will not get better. The Bengals defense is not going to get better throughout the rest of the year, and I think the price to be paid is going to be Lou Anarumo's job, because the Bengals are wasting an MVP caliber season from Joe Burrow. It's not really their way to move on from coaches or really anybody within the organization. I don't even want to say rashly, because I don't even think this would necessarily be rash. It's not like they've been perfect over the last year and a half. But the leash that the Bengals have for the people that are within their coaching staff and organization is longer than basically any other franchise. So I'm not convinced they move on from Zach Taylor, even for as bad as this year is. But if Zach Taylor doesn't leave, somebody has to. And it's not going to be Pritchard, their offensive coordinator. They just lost Brian Callahan to the head coaching job for the Tennessee Titans. I don't think they're going to fire Pritchard and it's going to be all right, well, now it's fixed, because especially with Zach Taylor being the one who calls plays. If anybody goes, I think it's going to be Lou Anarumo. And that stinks, because I do think that Lou Anarumo has orchestrated and constructed one of the best defenses that we have seen in the NFL over the last couple of years, especially when they went on that Super Bowl run when they had a lot of those other players. So, stars in and out. I understand that absolutely goes into it, and not everything is his fault. But it feels like Anarumo is going to be the scapegoat here for the Bengals season.
Right, and losing guys like Bates and Reeder is obviously a big deal. They're great players, and you see they're great players where they've gone afterwards. But you can't be this bad, right? You can't be second to last in the league in points per game allowed. You can't be 27th in defensive grade. You can't be 30th in EPA per play allowed for the season. I mean, that's just where it's at. And that's the most disappointing part of this whole thing is that you have a quarterback playing at an MVP level. You have a top, 5 or 6 offense somewhere up in there. And it's just, you can't be this bad. It reminds me so much of 10, 12 years ago. There was a stretch where the Saints with Drew Brees were going 7-9 every year, despite him throwing for 5,000 yards every year, because they were last in the league in defense. And this was just what they couldn't figure out until 7-8 years later when Brees was 36, 37 years old and past his prime a little bit. So I think this is the danger. If you're the Bengals, you need to fix this quick, because it's shown. If you have an elite guy like Burrow and he's playing at an elite level, it just doesn't matter if you have the worst defense in the league. It doesn't, because outside of the Raider game, I think that's really what they've been, is the worst defense in the league.
Before we get to most impressive and most disappointing, John asked in the chat, how's Joe Burrow's grade higher than Russell Wilson's when Russ didn't have the turnovers and threw for more yards? It mainly comes down to the big-time throws. Their grades are pretty similar when it comes to overall passing grades. Russell Wilson had an 80.3 passing grade. Joe Burrow had an 85.5 passing grade in this one, but Russell Wilson had 2 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. Joe Burrow had 5 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play in this one. So that's why Joe Burrow is elevated, because you get a lot of credit for making a big-time throw. So anytime there is somebody who has more big-time throws that we deem more big-time throws, then you're always going to see a little bit higher of a passing grade. But I want to shout out Russell Wilson as my most impressive in this game, because he absolutely was. And it's more of just a conversation about how good I think that he has been so far this season, specifically when it comes to passing the deep ball. 20 yards or more in this game, 2 for 3, 2 big-time throws. Both the big-time throws, obviously, when you throw it deeper down the field, you have a better chance to get a logged big-time throw. So in this game, he was 2 for 3 on throws of 20 or more yards with 2 big-time throws. 15 deep completions of 20 yards or more since Week 7, which is when he became the starter, tied for second in the NFL. 11 big-time throws on throws of 20 yards or more, tied for second in the NFL. And he has 0 turnover-worthy plays when throwing the ball 20 yards or more since Week 7, since he became the starter. Incredibly impressive. I think a lot of people looked at the switch at quarterback for the Steelers and they said, what are you doing? Tomlin, we're 4-2. Don't mess with a good thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Whichever phrase that you want to use here. And Tomlin was like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, hold on. I just want to see. And Tomlin's whole thing was, I'm not trying to win football games. I'm trying to win Super Bowls, right? That's what I want to do. That's what we're going for here. We're not just trying to win random games. I'm trying to win a Super Bowl. Shocker, Mike Tomlin was right. I think the offense was good, fine, when Justin Fields was in there. It was operating well enough. It was clearly a run-based attack. Russell Wilson completes this offense. Russell Wilson gives you the elements of passing the ball deep down the field to attack defenses like the one that we talked about with the Cincinnati Bengals that do not have the players or scheme or confidence or whatever it is to defend the deep pass. Russell Wilson is throwing that with as much confidence as we have seen, certainly since his prime Seattle days, it feels like. So shout out to Russell Wilson in this one. He is my most impressive player, because with him, this Pittsburgh Steelers team, it feels like, can go into any matchup against any team in the NFL. And I'm not saying that they would beat any team in the NFL, but you got a chance against any team in the NFL with the way the Steelers are currently constructed, and Russ is a big reason why.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think what it did is add something different, as opposed to Russ being such a better player than Justin. That's not really how it is. Now, could he see a better pure passer? Sure, but adding the deep ball, that was the one part with Fields that wasn't really there. It wasn't consistent, right? Russ throwing the moon balls and then getting those deep completions. And Justin still has a place in the offense, right? Who sealed this game with the first down read option run? It was Justin Fields. But I think on a consistent basis, Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith basically had to ask themselves, all right, what's better for our offense? An option element or a vertical element to our passing game? The latter is what they chose, and this is the reward. And we've said it before. Nobody's more grateful than George Pickens for Russell Wilson, right?
Absolutely.
He's really become a number one.
Perfect pairing.
He's become a number one receiver this year. And you mentioned it. You need a guy that gives you a chance to win. And what can win you the ball game, and here's my most impressive, and I can do it every week, is this Steelers defensive line. I mean, it's just ridiculous week in and week out. Not just one guy or two guys, the entire crew. Look at this. Look at this. Your starting defensive line in this game. TJ Watt, 6 pressures, 2 sacks, strip sack. Cam Hayward, 6 pressures, 4 hits in Joe Burrow's grill all day. Nick Herbig, the strip sack you mentioned, 93.8 pass rush grade. Keanu Benton, 3 pressures and a sack on the inside. This doesn't even mention Alex Highsmith, who's hurt right now. I mean, you're talking about a team with so much depth and talent on this defensive line. It's by far the best defensive line in football. It's not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, and they can take over games. So if you have an offense, now, do they need to score 44 a week? Absolutely not. They don't. We know this. But when you have an offense that gives you a chance, and you have a defense and a defensive line that can just flat out take over games. There are teams in the league with their offensive line situations not even capable of playing with Pittsburgh because of those 4 guys and several others right there. I mean, it's every single week, and I know I almost, when we do Steelers games and I do the most impressive, I have to try to find a reason not for it to be these guys, but I couldn't do it this week.
No,
I mean, that's just too dominant from the entire group as a whole. It's not just TJ, it's not just Cam. I mean, it's the entire thing. They have so many talented guys. They're the hardest team in football to block.
Yep.
Straight up.
And they draft so well, don't they? They know exactly what their coaches want, the scheme that they want to run, how they want to complement their stars. But it feels like everybody's a damn star in that front 7. So they're constructed so well in the Steelers. Just hats off to them. Certainly have outplayed my expectations of them going into the year. I thought this would be the year that's like, okay, the Tomlin. The Tomlin streak, I guess we'll call it, with being above 500. I was like, it's probably going to end this year. Absolutely.
It might just never end.
It might just never end. It really might not.
Even conservatively, you might have to just pick them to go 9-8.
On a defensive side of things, when it comes to disappointing, though, Joey Porter Jr., I'm getting a little worried here. Like, I don't know. I'm losing confidence in him being a CB1 type of a player in this league. 34.7 coverage grade so far. Or sorry, in this game in particular, not so far this season, 34.7 coverage grade in this game. Specifically, 5 penalties against him, 2 defensive holding, 3 defensive pass interference. Now it's 13 penalties against him. That is the most in the NFL by 4. Is Joey Porter Jr. So if you're holding that much, if you're getting this many penalties, I mean, it's a tough position to play. I know, but it feels like CB1 duties might be a little much for him. So when we talk about draft needs, things in the future, might need to look for a CB1 if you could potentially get that and push Joey Porter Jr. to a more CB2 role. What about you?
No, I agree. For me, it's just it can be this every week. It's just the Bengals defense. I mean, you can't continue to lose games when Joe Burrow's playing this well. I've never seen anything like it. It's just with Joe Burrow playing this well. If you think there's a single shred of blame on Joe Burrow for the way the Bengals season's gone, you're not watching the games. That's just where it's at right now. No, they just need to completely overhaul this defense. You mentioned it with one spot for the Steelers. It's 10 of the 11 spots for me for the Bengals. That's where we're at with them right now.
Cardinals Vikings. I think there's some interesting takeaways that we need to have and conversations we need to have about this game. Vikings end up winning by 1 point, 23-22 in the end. It was one that really came down to the wire. Minnesota's top 5 graded players. Shaq Griffin's at the very top of the list with an 84.7. Linebacker Blake Cashman an 80.9. Cornerback Stephon Gilmore a 79.9. Wide receiver Justin Jefferson a 78.3. And then edge rusher Andrew Van Ginkel a 76.5. Sam Darnold in this one earned a 77.6 overall grade. On Arizona's side of things, cornerback Sean Murphy-Bunting, very good game for him with a 90.8 overall grade. Tight end Trey McBride continues to have a phenomenal season. 80.7 grade. Running back James Conner, 77.9. Defensive tackle Roy Lopez, 77.1. And then cornerback Garrett Williams with a 72.6. Kyler Murray in this one, a 67.0. And Dalton, I thought that he really struggled. That's where I want to start things with the stat that told the story. When I was previewing this game, and I think I talked about this last week on this show as well, when things are going well for the Cardinals, we all go, there it is, baby. Here they are. The Cardinals are here. The offense is back. Kyler's back. He's playing at MVP level. He's got Marvin Harrison Jr. now. The run game with James Conner. We got Michael Wilson. We got Trey McBride. We're good to go, baby. Drew Petzing's in his bag. And I think that we all get very caught up in the good games of the Cardinals. But 13 weeks in now, it's very clear this is still the Arizona Cardinals. They are very up and down, especially as an offense. Now, defense, obviously, it was going to take a little bit of time. They need to get better up on the defensive front. We can talk about that when we get into NFL draft talk. But even on the offensive side of things, Kyler Murray in this game, four turnover-worthy plays and only one big-time throw. Now, it's the Vikings. I'm going to get to the Vikings in a second, talk about that contextually to make sure I give them their flowers. But we now have more games where Kyler has thrown multiple turnover-worthy plays in a single contest as we do multiple big-time throws in a single contest. So we have 5 games where he's had more than one turnover-worthy play in a single game, and we only have 4 games where he's had more than one big-time throw. So it's just way too volatile for me to really believe in the Arizona Cardinals. I think that they are right on track with them getting better. I have really enjoyed the last couple of drafts that Monty Ossenfort has had. I think that the Cardinals are going in the right direction. But I don't think this is their division to lose. And I wouldn't even tell you that I think the Cardinals are the favorites to still win this division. I don't have a lot of faith for them to go on the run that they need to in order to win this division. Maybe it happens. Obviously, we'll revisit it if it does. But at this point, 13 weeks into the season, to me, it's too up and down. Kyler has been way too volatile for this offense to... I mean, they're close. I mean, I guess, I want to make sure that I say, like, they're close in the standings at for the number one spot in their division. Like, Seattle's only 1 game ahead of them. Los Angeles is right there, though. I have more faith in those teams getting the division title than I do the Arizona Cardinals at this point. I think they're a year away from me really, really believing in them and their consistency and what they could be.
I think they're all flawed teams, and I think these 2 losses that the Cardinals have just suffered really hurt them, right? The game in Seattle last week in the rain when Kyler had the big pick 6, and then this game, I think we have to remember, they were up 19-6 late in this game. They had it. They had the 2-score lead, and you're going to go into the situational at the end, but no, you're right. Look, I still think they're capable of winning the division, but you mentioned it. You can't week in and week out and even quarter to quarter be as streaky as they are, because we've seen other games this year against the 49ers, against the Dolphins, where they were terrible for 3 quarters, and then they were great for the 4th quarter. So they are the roller coaster right now. It's a Kyler Murray roller coaster. At heart, they want to run the ball, and they want to prevent explosive plays on defense, because their defense is still a work in progress. We know this, and it's getting better, just like you mentioned. The name of the game for this team is progress. It's just that the level of progress now has got them in a playoff race. I do think it's possible, but you can't have what we've seen from the last really 6 quarters from Kyler Murray. It's just not good enough, especially when you're playing teams also in that race like Seattle and Minnesota. So I think that's the thing we look at and we go, okay, the Cardinals, you're right. It is that thing. It's like, oh, we want to believe, but we just kind of can't yet. Like it feels like next year, but it's also right in front of them. And I get it. Look, my stat that tells the story, I have to give Sam Darnold his credit on the other side. Cardinals were up 19-6 in this game. Mm-hmm. With a quarter to go in this game, we were sitting here like, oh, okay, maybe the Cardinals can still win the division. If they beat the 9-2 Vikings, they'll be tied with Seattle. And even though they lost last week, there's a long way to go. Sam Darnold on his last 3 drives of this game, 94.1 overall grade. Took the game over. It was quiet. They had 6 points. They were dead in the water. Sam Darnold brought them back. 12 of 17, 156 passing yards on these 3 drives, 3 big-time throws. There was a big scramble on the last drive that he got a first down on. I mean, it's just over and over and over. It feels like we keep waiting for Sam Darnold to turn back into Sam Darnold. And what he's actually doing is he's going to win Comeback Player of the Year this year. Yeah. That's what's going to happen, is moments like this. And times, and look, we've talked about some red zone struggles, and he's gotten through adversity. It hasn't all been pretty through 12 games. And he's had bumps in the road, and he's had red zone picks, and he's had this and that, but he just refuses to blink. And his all-pro left tackle is out for the season, and Aaron Jones is fumbling, and he just keeps making plays, especially under pressure in this game. To show up like that with your team down 2 touchdowns and then needing a touchdown to win the game on the last drive. I mean, this is Sam Darnold. You have to believe with moments like this that he can win playoff games with this team, not just all these regular season games, because they're on track to win, 12, 13 regular season games at least. They're still in this. For as much as we're talking about the Lions, they're 1 game behind the Lions, and they lost to them at the gun the last time they played. The Vikings could still win this division. Any sort of slip, or even you beat the Lions head-to-head, you make up that 1 game. And Sam Darnold, I didn't think I'd say this, but you have to sit here and say, I know their defense has been great, but he's been the biggest reason why. Because they are getting play out of their quarterback that I don't think we thought was possible this season.
My most impressive in this game, I'll flip to the other side of things for the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings defense. Flores, man. 28 turnover-worthy plays forced so far this year, 13 weeks in. Number one in the NFL. The only other team close, basically, is the Detroit Lions. I think they have 25. Everybody else is in low 20s or even like in the teens, right around 15. And it's just Flores' defense has quarterbacks in hell. And there were a couple of Kyler Murray turnover-worthy plays last week or yesterday, where it was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are you looking at? What was it, the Byron Murphy interception?
Yeah.
Where it's like he's tiptoeing on the sideline to come up with the interception, but like, what's Kyler throwing at? How are you doing? That, to me, that throw was just I'm sick of this. Like, I'm fed up. I'm fed up with playing this defense. I'm fed up with expecting to see something and seeing it a different way. And Flores had Kyler Murray in hell, like he has had so many quarterbacks in hell so far this season. So to me, the most impressive is the Vikings defense. Before we do most impressive and most disappointing for you, my most disappointing was Jonathan Gannon not going for that touchdown when they had the opportunity to at the end of the game.
We were sitting here arguing about this when we were watching it. We were like, maybe they should kill it while they have a chance.
And that was the thing, is like the second it happened, I looked at it, I was like, what is kicking a field goal do for you?
6 doesn't do. If it was 7, that'd be different. Six doesn't do you any
different.
good.
But Greg Golson talked about this on the broadcast. It's not that it's not that necessarily kicking a field goal to go up 6 like guarantees anything one way or the other. But you're actually making decisions for the other team easier. And you're actually making them more aggressive, which normally when that's the case, that's not a good thing for you, especially when you have all the time in the world, right? If it was a situation where like, okay, there were 40 seconds left, maybe, but even then it's a little different to me. So the situation was fourth quarter. There's 3 minutes and 23 seconds left in the game. Cardinals are up 19-16, and they kick a field goal. 4th and goal. You got 4th and goal. So he kicks the field goal. They go up 6. And Jonathan Gannon after the game says, well, we wanted to put them in a situation where they had to go for a touchdown. I don't think you want that. Because if you are the other team, if you were to go for that and they don't get it, and they're just up 19-16, yes, of course, like a field goal would tie the game and go to overtime, but you kicking a field goal doesn't guarantee anything for you, right?
And I think the first part of that decision tree there is the fact that it was 4th and goal from the 5. It's not like if it was 4th and goal from the 15 and something went wrong.
Different story.
You kick it.
It was very much something.
It's a thing of I trust my defense more to not give up a touchdown against Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and all these weapons versus if we get 5 yards, we win the ball. It's really no different than we have all the time to talk about the 2-point talk, and we're going to get to that in a game later where it's like, maybe just trust your offense to get 2 yards. And I know in this case 5 yards is a little different, but look, we know you're throwing. That's not a mystery. I mean,
right.
It's Do I think Gannon doesn't trust his offense? No, I don't think that. But I think in a spot like that, that's part of the decision that goes into it is, can we get 5 yards? And he basically, by kicking the field goal, said, no, I don't think so.
To me, you would almost rather them not have that thought in their head of like, oh, we've got to go for it. You would rather have it in their head of like, okay, well, we have a crutch. We can at least kick a field goal and go to overtime.
And if you don't get it, then the Vikings get the ball at the 5-yard line.
Right, exactly.
Right,
exactly.
As opposed to the 30 with a 6-point lead.
Yes.
So when you really think about it, they would have to go 70 yards in the scenario that they did, or they're going to have to go pretty close to 70 yards anyway because they're coming from the 5-yard line just to get the field goal.
Again, if they were going up 7, this is a different story.
Whole different thing.
Because if you're saying, okay, well, now they have to score a touchdown and they have to get a 2-point conversion, to me that's different. Even with the extra point being moved back and it's not as much of a guarantee as it used to be, totally understand that. But I did not like the logic at all whatsoever. It does not check out to me. Him saying, well, we wanted to be up 6, again, that doesn't do anything for me. I would much rather the offense even think to themselves, okay, well, maybe we should just play for the field goal here, and then you go to overtime, and then sort of all bets are off at that point.
And also
6 points just does not do anything for you in that situation.
Darnold had just driven them down for 10 points the previous 2 drives. You could see he was heating up. So it's not a situation where you go, okay, look, we've had this quarterback's number all day. All of a sudden, you don't. He's heating up now, and you just gave him even more life. You left him a pulse,
right? And
then he got blazing hot the last drive, and he beat you. So,
and again, I would rather them start the drive at the 5, than start the drive at the 30.
And you're right, the goals do change there. The touchdown is almost seen as a bonus. You see a lot of coaches, it's like, okay, let's get the tie and go to overtime,
right?
Unless they really get a prime opportunity.
Correct.
But no, I think you're right. It is an interesting decision, and it did. In the end, it did cost them.
Most impressive and disappointing before we move on.
I'm still staying on the Cardinals side. I know I do this a lot, but Trey McBride's so good. 12 catches, 96 yards, 7 first downs, 80 receiving grade. You mentioned the inconsistency of the Cardinals offense. He's the one guy who isn't. He shows up every single week. He's one of the 5 best tight ends in football, without question. Most disappointing, Aaron Jones has had a really tough go of it lately. 8 touches in this game for 28 yards, 2 fumbles, lost one of them. Since week 9, which is interestingly the 5 full games now they've played without Christian Darrisaw, Aaron Jones is the second lowest graded running back in the league.
Wow. Wouldn't have thought that.
Fumbles, and just the run game has really suffered more so from not having Christian Darrisaw there. He's such a dominant player on both sides, right, run and pass, and Aaron Jones is really, it's been a struggle lately. It was a struggle in this game. 2 fumbles, like I said, one of them early in this game that he lost that I think the Cardinals ended up missing the field goal on, so it didn't cost them points, but it's been hard times for the Vikings run game and Aaron Jones especially lately.
Chargers-Falcons, next game we're talking about here. Los Angeles Chargers win this one. It was a close game, low-scoring game, 17-13, the final score. Chargers, it feels like anytime it's a close, low-scoring game, they're going to come out on top. It's just what it feels like their
what they do.
DNA is. Los Angeles Chargers, top 5 graded players in this one. Cornerback Tarheeb Still, the rookie, 94.0 grade in this one for 2 interceptions. Safety Derwin James Jr. with a 90.9. Offensive tackle Rashawn Slater, an 88.4. Linebacker Diane Henley, an 83.1. And then safety Tony Jefferson at 83.0. Justin Herbert in this game, 72.8. We'll get into sort of his passing totals and his day through the air in a second. On Atlanta's side of things, edge rusher Lorenzo Carter with an 89.6. Cornerback A.J. Terrell with an 84.8. Safety Justin Simmons an 81.8. Cornerback Clark Phillips an 80.4. And then safety D. Alford with a 73.8. Kirk Cousins in this one really struggled. 41.5 overall grade here in this one. I know this is your most disappointing. This is my stat that told the story. We can kind of combine it here. Kirk Cousins. I was about to say Kirk Cousins is holding this team back. I don't know if I am allowed to say that because a rookie is the alternative, right? We don't know. For as much as I love what Michael Penix could be, we don't know if this year's version of Michael Penix right now is actually better than Kirk Cousins. So I can't necessarily say that he is holding them back. But boy, it does not feel like this team is any sort of threat at all whatsoever to make any sort of a playoff run with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Even if they were to happen to win the NFC South, because the NFC South seems very weak and all over the place this year, I have no faith in them winning in the wild card round and going anywhere beyond that first round of the playoffs because of the way that Kirk Cousins is playing. He was 24 for 39 in this game, 245 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 4 equal turnover-worthy plays in this one. He so far this season, he has 5 big-time throws and 12 turnover-worthy plays when pressured. When pressured, he's terrible. 5 big-time, 12 turnover-worthy plays. It's a terrible ratio of big-time throws to turnover-worthy plays. Obviously, it's gonna sort of look like that when you're pressured because you don't want to get pressured as a quarterback, but that's bad. That's the most in the NFL. That's the most turnover-worthy plays when pressured in the NFL, as are his 21 turnover-worthy plays overall, both number 1 in the NFL. We're looking at one of Tarheeb Still's interceptions that you and I watched live when we were here in the office. He's throwing an out route against cover 2.
The pick 6, yeah.
But, brother, you don't have the arm for that anymore. I mean, it's just a duck going to the sideline. He can't complete that pass. Especially not against that type of defense. I mean, the corner's literally staring at you. He's waiting for you to throw that pass. Now, sometimes, all right, well, I mean, like the coverage, it can confuse quarterbacks, and there was a little bit of rotation there. You weren't exactly sure where the coverage was going to be, but it ended up being very clearly covered too. And even without that, the off-coverage alignment pre-snap, I mean, Cousins has got to be able to see that. He sees that the corner's not looking at the wide receiver, he's looking at him. It's not going to be man coverage. It's off zone, and you're going to throw that out route to the sideline. That was the easiest pick 6 that Tarheeb Still is ever going to have. And that's unfortunately where we're at Kirk Cousins. The high IQ stuff, I think, still exists for him. But he's not nearly as mobile as he used to be, if you want to call it that at all, before the Achilles injury. And if anything, the scripted drives, he can still operate very well, in my opinion. First drive of the game, first drive of the second half, 2-minute drills.
Yep.
Those are the things, 2-minute, 4-minute drills, whatever you want to call them. Those are the drives where I think Kirk Cousins has been his best so far this season. Anything in between, I do not have a lot of faith in him, and very clearly the numbers tell you that he's putting the ball in harm's way a lot more than he is not doing that. So it's been tough to watch Kirk Cousins, and I don't know if Michael Penix is better right now, and it would be very difficult to go to him while you still have the division lead right now over the Buccaneers. But there is a world where we see Michael Penix before the 2024 season is done, and it would be Michael Penix's show moving forward going into 2025.
What's going to happen, to me, I think, because it's going to be tight enough and they're tied with the Bucs now and they have the tiebreaker, is you're going to see Kirk Cousins the rest of the way, good or bad. If they're not mathematically out of it, I don't think you'll see Michael Penix. He's the veteran. He's got the contract. Probably still gives them the best chance to win, but that's getting ugly. I think there is. You mentioned the physical part of it. I remember watching Week 1 against the Steelers, and it was like that. It was like, wow, he can't move, and his arm looks like a 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles tear, right? I don't think we see anything any different. And you mentioned the in-betweens on offense. Look, a big part of a Zach Robinson offense that comes from Sean McVay, that comes from Kyle Shanahan, that comes from Mike Shanahan, is we have bootlegs and design rollouts and things that use both sides of the field, right?
Yep.
He's not capable. There's no bootleg in this game. There's a whole part of the playbook, a giant chunk of this playbook at the base of every Shanahan-style offense's playbook that they cannot run. There's hardly any play action in this offense, despite the fact that they have one of the 3 or 4 best backs in football in Bijan Robinson. Mm-hmm. He's limiting them with a lack of mobility. The arm strength, it doesn't look great. That's a fact. Look, my stat that tells a story on both sides, I'll start with the Falcons, is just a lack of explosive plays. And in a 17-13 game, sure, when the biggest touchdown of the game was a pick six, it's obvious, but the Falcons had 5 explosive plays the whole day. But it really wasn't because of Cousins. Even their longest play of the day was a 10-yard out he threw that almost was picked off, and Ray McLeod then took it 60 yards down the field. But 0 for 4 on deep balls. He didn't have a single completion past 12 air yards. Kirk Cousins is living in a bubble right now in the passing game, and so are the Falcons. They can't even use these weapons. Kyle Pitts, another game without a catch. Drake London, all his catches within that 10-yard mark. He should be a vertical guy that we're using downfield, right? Even Bijan can line up on the outside, and you have speed guys like Mooney and Ray, and he can't do it. If you go to Penix, it's almost the same logic behind going to Russell Wilson over Justin Fields in the fact that, okay, maybe we can just complete passes downfield, and the kid's just more of a threat. There's nothing explosive about this Falcons team because of Cousins. And I hate to say it like that, but we have hit the point now where we just have to accept. And you hope for the full recovery and that he would look good. And you mentioned this, but 2-minute drives, he's won in some games. He's a 36-year-old quarterback off an Achilles tear. And one that never had an A-plus arm in the first place. His weapon was his timing and his IQ. And it's not that he doesn't have those things, but the timing changes when you don't have the arm. So their complete lack of explosiveness in this offense is killing it right now, right? Because at least even take the Bucs, who they're tied with. Okay, it's up and down sometimes, but we know Baker can make all the throws. Just has to not throw it into too many tight windows. With Kirk, every window's tight right now, and it's just this bubble. It feels like you're watching like a Jimmy Garoppolo, where you just go, yeah, there's throws out there he just can't make. And on the other side of that stat tells a story. The Chargers, kind of the same way. They haven't been a real explosive team all year, but only 4 explosive plays for them. They didn't even attempt a deep pass. They didn't even bother taking a shot. They just said, you know what, we'll let Cousins give us this game. I just love the stat, too, and I'm sure you're about to talk about this, is 62.5% of their total yardage went to Ladd McConkey.
Yeah.
It was Ladd McConkey against the Falcons. And somehow
even higher percentage when it comes to the passing.
Yeah, just the passing. It was Ladd McConkey and the Chargers defense against the Falcons, and it was just about who was less explosive and who was going to make more mistakes, and that was Atlanta. I mean, it's just Cousins.
This game's all about who's going to be less explosive.
Who's going to really? It is. It was literally. This is a game, and I think there's a lot more games like this than we think. And I watch them every week at the college level. Who's just not going to be worse?
Right.
And that was
just funny when you hear somebody say it like that.
And the number of games that Jim Harbaugh won like that at Michigan is crazy. You're just like, hey, they're bad and we're not, so we're going to not be bad with them. That's actually what happened here in this game. And credit to Jesse Minter and the defense. They've done a spectacular job all year. But this is like the turning point game where I start to wonder if Kirk Cousins now we're just over the hill. And the problem is the contract is guaranteed next year. I don't even know what you do next year.
Yeah, I think. Shoot, was it yesterday when we were talking about this? It might have been you. It might have been Max. I can't remember who said this, but you were like, the Penix pick ain't looking so bad. It's like, okay. The Penix part of it maybe doesn't look so bad, but you sign a quarterback to a 2-year, almost fully guaranteed $150 million deal. I can't remember exactly what he's getting over the first 2 years.
But 2 and 100 is guaranteed.
So 2 and 100 is guaranteed. If I'm going to give you credit for Michael Penix, I ain't giving you credit for that. That's a very expensive way to go about the quarterback position. If it works out for you, it works out for you.
It's entirely possible they have a $50 million backup next year.
Right. And look, is that a good allocation of resources? No. I think everybody would tell you that. But as long as your owner is okay with it and signs off on it and you're not letting major free agents out the door, I guess who cares, right? Especially if you feel like you nail it in Michael Penix Jr. and you got the guy no matter what. So kind of a whirlwind of how we got there. I said this after the draft when they drafted Michael Penix. I don't totally hate the logic. I don't. I understand it.
I love it.
There's a world where this completely works out. I just wish you had a better sort of futuristic scouting of Kirk Cousins before you signed him.
The assumption was, okay, we can get 2 years out of him. They may have only gotten 10 or 11 games out of him.
Right.
Yeah.
And even that, did they really?
If they don't,
or did they really just get the 2 Bucs games?
Did
you pay $100 million just to throw for 900 yards and 7 touchdowns against Todd Bowles' defense?
And here's my split.
Because now they own the tiebreaker against the Bucs.
The two games against the Bucs.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. We need to hear it.
The 2 games against the Bucs, he has an 89.4 passing grade. All the other games, it's 62.3. And a 62.3 passing grade is backup caliber stuff.
He's a Todd Bowles merchant.
I think we've seen plenty of those.
He's a Todd Bowles merchant.
Yeah.
My most impressive in this game, well, actually, most disappointing real quick because you talk about the Chargers. My most impressive is just, it's going to sort of sound like praise from McConkey, which I guess it kind of is, but I would like for the passing attack to be a little bit more diverse for the Los Angeles Chargers and one of the best quarterbacks in the game. 16 of Herbert's 12 completions. No, sorry, other way around. 12 of Herbert's 16 completions went to McConkey. 117 of his 147 passing yards went to McConkey. The next best receiver on the team after McConkey's 117 receiving yards was Quentin Johnston with 12. Got to be better than that, folks. It's got to be a lot better than that. So that was my most disappointing. Most impressive is obviously the man who made all the difference in the world. 2 interceptions, 94.3 coverage grade, I will say 82.9 defensive grade overall this season. Sharheep still playing well.
Jim Harbaugh. Dave,
just gets it.
What a draft he's had. I didn't realize, too, Ladd McConkey now leads all rookie wide receivers in yards.
There it is.
After all the talk about Neighbors and Harrison, Odunze, and all the first-round guys right now, and the only rookie ahead of him, of course, is Brock Bowers, which is you wonder why Georgia's offense looks the way it does with down on the college level, with Bowers and McConkey being the top 2 among rookies.
What if teams just drafted good football players?
Georgia's got a lot of them. The Eagles do it all the time. Maybe that's the key.
I'm being facetious, but yes.
I mean,
you're most impressive. Who you got?
How about Derwin James? You mentioned Still. I'll take another guy in the secondary. And Derwin James really over the last few weeks playing a lot more in the slot, kind of operating as the Chargers' weak side linebacker, nickel, slot corner type of guy as opposed to a traditional safety. And look, the role's fitting him well. 90.9 overall grade in this game, 86.9 in run defense with 3 stops, a game-winning interception in coverage. 75% of his snaps in this game either in the slot or at linebacker. Derwin James is playing down closer to the line of scrimmage more often than he was earlier in the year. I think it's helping him a lot. He can kind of operate in a similar manner, kind of how sometimes Jalen Ramsey does too. I think that's kind of fitting him better than playing a true free safety. Let the other guys on the team, if you have Alohi Gilman, if you some other guys at safety who play that more traditional role, let them play a deep half. Let Derwin James work down by the line of scrimmage, and that's working for their defense.
Titans Commanders. A little bit of a blowout. I feel like we can be a little bit more brief here in this analysis. Washington wins this game 42-19. Top 5 graded Washington Commanders in this one. Running back Chris Rodriguez with a 90.2. Overall grade, center Tyler Biadasz an 85.6. Wide receiver Terry McLaurin a 77.3. Defensive tackle Daron Payne with a 73.2. Linebacker Frankie Luvu a 70.4. Jaden Daniels in this one a 68.0. On Tennessee's side of things, cornerback Darrell Baker Jr., 73.8. Cornerback Roger McCreary with a 71.6. Edge rusher Harold Landry III a 70.9. Guard Peter Skronsky a 76.4. And offensive tackle J.C. Latham a 67.3. Will Levis in this one a 69.3. Dalton, my stat that told the story, this one was over very quickly, and it was over because of fumbles. The Tennessee Titans had 3 total fumbles in this game. 2 of them lost. The first two of them came in, either it was in the first quarter or right when we got into the second quarter, because Washington had 14 points generated off of those 2 fumbles that the Tennessee Titans lost. The game was 28-0 Washington, less than 5 minutes to go in the second, or less than 5 minutes into the second quarter. This game was over
19 minutes.
19 minutes into the game?
Yep.
Yeah, 28-0. Oh, you're not going to come back from that. So it's tough to find a lot of nuggets in this game, because it was almost like the first quarter happened. You went, okay, can we just give you the win and then we'll restart and see what kind of football game we can actually come up with? Because it wasn't going to be close after that, and obviously the final score represents that.
Yeah, I could just run through it all right now because it's the summary. The most disappointing is that Titans first half. The 2 fumbles, one of them on a kick return that really hurt them bad. 17 yards on the first 4 drives and 1 first down, and like you mentioned, 28-0 in the first 19 minutes. Now, the big story coming out of this game is the Commanders getting back to running the living hell out of the ball. This team is as great as Jaden Daniels has been. He might win Rookie of the Year, all that stuff, and he is great. But they're best when they're balanced, right? He had a good game, graded around a 68, right? And that's good. That's fine. When this team wins, they run for 194 yards a game. When they lose, they run for 98. It's that simple. If they have balance and they're not overly relying on Jaden to do everything for them like they did against the Ravens and the Steelers and the Eagles, which are 3 of the elite defenses, especially against the run in football, then they're really good. This game, 147 rushing yards in the first half, 6.4 per carry, 10 forced missed tackles on the day. This is what the Commanders can be when they're balanced. And the guy I want to highlight here, actually, because I was just a little worried about this matchup with Tennessee, just like I was with Houston last week when they beat them, is those inside guys, T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons, right, and causing problems, and Washington's offensive line have been struggling. Their center, Tyler Biadasz, made sure that just didn't happen. A 90.6 run blocking grade in this game. 13 positively graded run blocks in this game, which I think only maybe once or twice I've seen more than that. That might be the season high for anybody, all right? 42 combined reps against those 2 guys, Sweat and Simmons, like I mentioned, which I think is the biggest problem when you play the Titans. He allowed 1 pressure in pass protection. He had 6 wins in the run game and no losses out of 23 reps. Tyler Biadasz, player of the day in Washington, really a good rebound for the Commanders' offensive line. He was the start of it, especially in the middle against those 2 guys. Yeah,
most impressive is the Commanders' run game, no doubt about it. 267 rushing yards as a team, most of any singular week that they have had so far this season. So not only are they back, this is the best version of them that we have seen, which would be great for them going down the stretch. Brian Thomas Jr. over 100 yards rushing on 16 carries. The most disappointing for me, I highlighted this last week, the Titans' interior defensive line has been playing really well this season. In particular, the combination of T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons in this one, 51.4 overall grade. T'Vondre Sweat was a little bit better. It was right around 70, but 10 missed tackles as a team, I think overall as well, really hurt this. And so after the Titans defense have been playing better as of late, specifically on the interior defensive line, Biadasz kicked ass, and obviously it was a good win for the Commanders, especially up front, getting back to their ways against an interior defensive line unit that's been playing really, really well. Anything else on this one before we move on?
No, it was pretty straightforward. It was 20 minutes of ball game, and the rest was kind of a formality.
Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars, 23-20 was the final score in this one. Houston Texans take it down in Jacksonville. Unfortunate for this one, Azeez Al-Shaair, a late hit on Trevor Lawrence, and Lawrence, scary concussion scene for him. He ends up going out of the game and not returning in the first half, and so obviously that's a big talking point. We'll get to that in a second. But Houston's top 5 graded players in this one as they got the victory. Offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil's at the top of the list with an 84.7. Wide receiver Nico Collins an 80.9. Edge rusher Will Anderson with a 72.5. Guard Hugh Scruggs with a 71.9. Guard Shaq Mason with a 71.4. And then C.J. Stroud a 77.2. On Jacksonville side of things, Arik Armstead, their defensive tackle, with an 86.1. Wide receiver Parker Washington an 80.7. Linebacker Devin Lloyd a 72.3. Linebacker Ventrell Miller 72.0. And then offensive tackle Anton Harrison with a 71.6. Mac Jones in this one, because we'll give it to Mac Jones because he played most of the game. 84.1 PFF grade. Mac actually playing well in this one, giving his team a chance to win it, but ultimately they come up a field goal short. Seth told the story, Dalton.
Okay, so imagine having a franchise rookie of the year winning quarterback who's really darn talented, and you know he's a guy you want to try to win a Super Bowl, right?
Bo Nix.
This could be another one, true. But which you know.
Had to throw you a curveball there.
But the second part of this is something Nix has that one C.J. Stroud hasn't had all year. They actually protected him this week, and that is a big, big thing for any quarterback, but especially with the theme of Stroud and his interior offensive line this year. 76.9 pass blocking grade for the Texans, their highest of the season. CJ was only pressured on 9 out of his 40 dropbacks. You give CJ Stroud clean pockets, he can succeed. I don't even think he had a big-time throw in this game, but he made throws to the right places because he was given time in the pocket to do so, to get to his second, third read and keep moving the chains. All right, so 2 things stand out for me in this game. That's the first one. You protect Stroud, good things happen. We know this. 2, and this plays a part in it, first down. I'm watching this game back on the All-22, and I'm like, wow, the Texans, it actually feels like there's something getting going here on first down. So I had to look into a couple of things. Coming into this week, Texans were 18th in yards per play on first down, all right? Somewhere hovering around 5, maybe low 5s, 5.2, somewhere around there. This game's 7.1, one of the highest marks of the week. Big-time stuff. We're getting moving on first down. The other thing, coming into this week, they trailed only Seattle in negative plays on first down. That you can't move backwards. It's something even Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes talk about all the time, is you can't move backwards on first down. You can't be in 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13 all the time. You can't live like that. Only 2 negative plays on first down in this entire game. Those are the 2 things that stuck out to me, is you protect Stroud, you move forward on first down instead of backwards. You get this offense in a little bit of a rhythm. I thought there was you're going to mention it, a little more complementary bit to this offense. They were a little more two-dimensional than past weeks. And surprise, surprise, they actually scored 17 points in the second half in this game. They were a little cold starting out, but they finally started scoring in the second half. So all those things put together, a much better day for the Texans.
I just love how Mixon is playing with this team. Whenever they need something from Joe Mixon, they get it. And this felt like a day where Stroud played better, the offensive line played better, obviously, as you pointed out. But Mixon, he's the glue to this entire team, it feels like. I don't know where they are without Joe Mixon. They got probably at least 2 less wins because he's been the one who's been the steady presence when the offense hasn't been getting going. While Nico Collins was hurt, certainly with Stephon Diggs going out as well, it's not as potent. The struggles along the interior offensive line. They have needed a veteran, experienced running back who knows how to make the most out of bad situations and knows how to take advantage of situations wherever he is in plus territory. So this is somebody who, Mixon continuing to play well, another 100-yard game for Joe Mixon this season, and it doesn't feel like it's quiet because it does feel like that we talk about it quite a bit here on this show, but his presence to them continues to be very, very impressive. And it's not just a 100-yard mark that he continues to hit. It's the 5.1 yards per carry average. It is the healthy yards per carry average. And yeah, one of those carries went for 30 yards, which obviously helps the number. But it's not like one of those went for 85 yards and it was like all coming from one run and not getting a lot of production every other time you hand the ball off to him. So his continuous complement to the offense and being whatever they need him to be out of the backfield has been so important to the Texans. And for as much as I don't want to say like we as in like PFF, although we have been guilty of this at times, like de-emphasize the running back position. You also need to be able to praise it when it is the compliment that certainly the Texans have right now with Joe Mixon. So I think that is worth pointing out. Most impressive to me is Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. was incredible in this game. He only had 4 catches for 76 receiving yards. He had that long of a 56-yard pass, but he had another fantastic catch where his foot was just out of bounds, but it was just like an incredible catch that he made. And I also love the fight that he showed, quite literally, against Azeez Al-Shaair. He is yelling at him. He is going at him, going into the tunnel as they were sort of escorting Azeez Al-Shaair off the field. And I want to get to that in a second, but this was a game where we saw so many great flashes from Brian Thomas Jr., where it felt like every time the ball was going his way, even though he got 10 targets, only hauled the ball in 4 times, so it wasn't, as efficient as you want it to be. This is the dude, man. This is your wide receiver 1 moving forward. And I hope the Jags build the entire passing offense around him while they continue to get better as the years go on. Specifically, this upcoming draft, where they're going to have a pretty high pick as the team currently picking number 1 overall for the 2025 NFL draft. Your most impressive and most disappointing before we kind of have the Azeez Al-Shaair conversation.
You mentioned Mixon, and I'll tell you what, it's a good feeling getting to run behind Laramie Tunsil too. I mean, the one constant for this Texans offense through it all is they have one of the best left tackles in football. 40 reps in pass protection, only lost one of them all day. 87.6 pass pro grade, 77.8 run blocking grade. When they ran to either side with Joe Mixon to either side of Laramie Tunsil, 8 carries, 69 yards. Get behind your big left tackle just like the 49ers do with Trent Williams and just keep running it and have him pass protect until it doesn't work anymore. They have problems on the interior, but they certainly don't have one at left tackle. And then the Jags, I mean, there's always something with Jacksonville. But, again, just the run game, not there. And I know, Mac Jones has to come in the game and carry him. And he only came in the game, was it 3-0 or even still scoreless when he came in, and then they fell behind. But 22 design carries for 85 yards, 30 of them on 2 explosives that they had. It's just the Jags, they don't have to overhaul at receiver. They got a number 1 receiver, but they got to overhaul this run game. And I think the offensive line, especially this offseason, they have to have balance in this offense.
So the most disappointing thing that just happened in this game was Azeez Al-Shaair hitting Trevor Lawrence and knocking him out of the game, giving him what looked like a pretty bad concussion. It looked like he lost control in his arms, and it looked like he was sort of unconscious when he was lying on the field. And so that just is disappointing all around. Now, it's not the first time that Azeez Al-Shaair has played, a little beyond what he should as a linebacker. I know that we're not used to the big hits as much anymore. Sometimes, in the old NFL, as they would say, maybe this would have just been a, hey, good hit. The game was still going on. They didn't whistle it dead. He's sliding, whatever. You're playing football. You're getting hit. That's just not the game that we play anymore right now. He had a late hit on Caleb Williams a couple of weeks ago where, a scrum immediately happened afterwards and he threw a punch. And there have been a couple of other big hits that he's had to the sideline that are questionable. There was a play that went around social media that a lot of people showed where he's going to, I think, like hit the ball, and then his hand like grabs Tom Brady's like throat as he's kind of like going in and trying to disrupt the pass. And so I don't want to say that he's a dirty player or anything like that, but it is a repeated behavior.
You have to know when to control it, right? And we've had guys like this, I think about like Vontaze Burfict here.
A suspension has to be coming. You have to suspend.
That's where I was going with that. I think it's at least a game coming out of this.
This has to be a 2-game at minimum suspension, because you've had enough instances from Azeez Al-Shaair in the past where you've gone, it's kind of bored. Like the Chicago one where he hits Caleb Williams out of bounds. He pops up, and obviously the rest of the Bears players are not happy about it, so people get in his face. He throws a punch. He throws a punch on the sideline, and nothing happens for it. And it's like, okay, now you've had the chance to go back, and that tape exists. We all see it. It's all circulating social media. So you kind of missed it there with him throwing a punch. Now you've got an instance where he blasts Trevor Lawrence before he reaches the ground, concusses him when he's giving himself up on a slide, and what happens immediately afterwards? One, shout out Evan Ingram, who was defending his dude and slammed Azeez Al-Shaair afterwards. I know we don't love the retaliation, whatever, but like, you got to fight for your dude, man. So I think shout out to Evan Ingram for that. And then Azeez Al-Shaair, as he's leaving the field, he's trying to fight people. So it's to me, you got to send a message to him and the rest of the league. I think it's a 2-game minimum suspension for Azeez Al-Shaair, in my opinion, especially when you look at sort of his track record before this stuff. But I also want to be fair to him, and I want to read out what he tweeted earlier this morning. And it's an apology, and in my opinion, it's one of the best apologies that I have read of a player who has delivered what feels like a dirty hit, and then, a lot of emotions and pride and everything comes up afterwards. So I want to make sure that I read this to be fair to him. So he tweets this out, and it's a notes app that he tweeted out. I've always played the game as hard as I could, never with the intent to harm anyone, and anybody that knows me knows that. My goal is to hit you as hard as I can and pray that you're still able to get up and play the next play. When the game is over, go home to your family unharmed because it's not personal, it's just competition. We're both trying to do the same thing, which is provide for our families. I genuinely didn't see him sliding until it was too late. Debatable, but whatever. It's a fast game. He's a linebacker, and his job is to hit people, whatever. Getting back to it. And it all happens in the blink of an eye. To Trevor, I genuinely apologize to you for what ended up happening. Before the game, we spoke, and I told you how great it was to see you back out on the field and wished you well. I would never want to see a player hurt because of a hit that I put on them, especially one that is deemed quote-unquote late or unnecessary. To the rest of his teammates, I can definitely understand you having his back and defending him in that situation like that. To the rest of the people who have been called every single name in the book, from reporters with their hands ready to find a story, and hold on, I'm going to the next page. Anything from a villain to a racist and an Islamophobic fans and people. You don't know my heart or my character, which I don't need to prove to any of you. God knows my intentions, and anyone who has ever been a teammate of or a friend of mine knows that. So, honestly, him genuinely apologizing to Trevor Lawrence, him saying sort of what he said, and even saying, hey, to Evan Ingram and the rest of his teammates who wanted to beat the shit out of me afterwards, he was like, I get it. I totally get it. And I am at least glad to read that from him, whether that was his words exactly or maybe the words of his team that's trying to craft something together to point that out there. Whatever. He tweets it out. He says it. I hope he hears it. I hope it's true. 2-game suspension at a minimum, in my opinion.
No,
That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I get that part. And I've watched him play for a lot longer than many have, because he's another one. He went to FAU. He actually crossed over when I was still there back in 2015 and 16. He's their all-time leading tackler. So we're down there. We're well aware of who he is and what type of player he is. And I don't remember him ever having these sort of habits down there. But again, football is a fast game. I do get that part. I get the part about reaction time, but you have to kind of know too sometimes when a quarterback is going to slide feet first. Mm-hmm. They're going to do it, right? Yeah. I mean, and then there's some quarterbacks, Josh Allen or somebody where, you got to hit them. But I think you see times every week where guys anticipate the slide coming and those sorts of situations. Yeah. And you still can't be going to just take his head off.
Yeah.
Right? So, look, is it something he can learn from? Absolutely. If he does learn from it, suspension or not, fantastic. It's unfortunate to see, especially a player like Trevor Lawrence in that spot, and it's been a lot of talk about concussions, especially with quarterbacks the last couple of years. But if it's something he learns from, fantastic, because he's been a really good player for a long time, and the Texans, they still need him to be that player and be on the field and just cut out that sort of thing. Because even D'Amico Ryan said, he's like, that's not us. He said we can't do that. Yeah. We know this, and he had him with the 49ers too, so he knows him as well as anybody.
Right. Look, I think quarterbacks get overprotected in the game as it's currently constructed. I will certainly admit that. But that's not it. Whether or not you think that quarterbacks get overprotected, nobody wants to see that.
Yeah.
And I understand. You sign up to play a violent game. It's a violent game. It's a bang bang play. It is so fast, especially at the professional level. I am not trying to discount any of that. That hit, nobody wants to see.
Can't have it.
Nobody wants to see that hit. So if you got to let up and let quarterbacks slide, and you could say to yourself all you want, we can't hit the quarterback, whatever. That's the stuff they're actually trying to take out of the game. So in my opinion, he 2-game suspension minimum. That's what I think. And you get him back for the rest of the regular season and into the playoffs. Look, if you're looking for a best way to win huge prizes during one of the best NFL weeks, months, honestly, of the year, look no further than DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. This Thanksgiving and beyond, you can play for free for a $1 million top prize. That's right, any customer, new or existing, can play for free for the $1 million top prize with their next $5 deposit. We got some great games coming down the stretch. We got Thursday Night Football. We got the Packers-Lions. That's a fantastic one. Chargers Chiefs, I think that's huge now for the division. Like that, I think that's a major game. So I mean, like you got so many different matches. I just talked about the Cardinals, how I don't even know how much faith I have in the Cardinals anymore. Well, they get to host the Seattle Seahawks this week, so this is a huge game for them. A lot of fantastic matchups, and if you feel like you know what's going to happen, you got to check it out. Make it a happy Thanksgiving and just a happy holidays overall for the next month with DraftKings. All customers, download the DraftKings app now. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF to play for a free shot at $1 million top prizes only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. If you've got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or just text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age does vary by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Void where prohibited. Minimum $5 deposit required. Reward is issued as a $5 ticket for November 28 Fantasy Football Millionaire. Colts Patriots is the next preview game that we want to hit here. Colts thrilling victory, 1-point victory, 25-24 in this game. Top 5 graded Indianapolis Colts. Edge rusher Tyquan Lewis at the top of the list with a 92.3. Tight end Andrew Ogletree with an 84.7. Center Danny Pinner with an 82.6. Defensive tackle DeForest Buckner with an 82.2. Offensive tackle Bernard Ryman with an 81.8, and then Anthony Richardson is 79.3. Richardson playing well over the last 3 weeks, Dalton. Just saying.
Reasonably.
Playing well over the last 3 weeks. On New England side of things, tight end Austin Hooper, 81.8. Cornerback Christian Gonzalez, an 80.2. Cornerback Marcus Jones, a 77.2. Cornerback Alex Austin, a 77.1. Linebacker Christian Ellis rounding things out at number 5 with a 69.8. Quarterback Drake May, a 76.0. Stat that told the story, Dalton. What do we got?
Okay, coulda, woulda, shoulda is always dangerous, right? But
Yep.
New England should have won this game. I don't have any two bones about saying that. They went 2 for 6 in the red zone. That's a big part of it. 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, a missed field goal from, I think it was 25 or 27 yards. A Drake May interception that really wasn't his fault. It went off the hands, I think, of Hunter Henry right in the middle of the field. It was a deflection. It got picked off. There was early in the game where they had 2 straight holdings when they were down in the red zone that took them out of really touchdown range. I mean, I just think the Patriots missed a lot of opportunities against a Colts defense that hasn't played well most of the year and didn't in this game despite the score and the win and everything. The other one, too, is they got the ball with a 7-point lead with 8 minutes left, and they went 3 and out, and there was really just no – even when they had run the ball reasonably well all day, it was run, pass, and it was 3 and out, and they gave Richardson the ball back with a chance to win it or make a decision to win it, and then did win it. You know, you're going to talk about Shane Steichen here, but I really think the Patriots should have won this game. I thought Drake May played well. They ran for 200 yards, which might even be a season high for them. I don't remember them running for 200 yards all season. But this is how the bad teams stay bad, is you lose games like this and you don't take advantage of your opportunities. And the Colts did take advantage of the slight window that they had to win this game. Props to them for playing well in the fourth quarter. But I think if New England's got to be looking at this game going, man, we should have won it. We left way too much on the field and on the board to lose this game. They could have easily scored 38, 42 points in this game, and they just didn't execute down in the red zone.
Yeah, well, and the reason why they didn't win the game is my stat that told the story, and it was the end-of-game sequence, the last drive from Shane Steichen, including the decision to go for 2 and win it. When you look at this 9th drive that they had here, this was a 19-play, 80-yard drive that took 5 minutes and 22 seconds off the clock for the Indianapolis Colts to get in the end zone, and then the decision to go for 2. I absolutely love it. Steichen put the ball in Anthony Richardson's hands, and Anthony Richardson had an 80.3 overall passing grade on that 9th drive. Now, it's not like every single pass was perfect, but he did what he needed to do to drive the ball down there. He had 2 big-time throws on that drive specifically on the last drive to get them into the end zone there. So, just overall, to me, this was truly the stat that told the story, not for this one, but also moving forward. He put the ball in Anthony Richardson's hands to go win the game, and it was a beautiful, long drive for them, 80 yards, 19 plays, massive time on the clock. They totally ate everything up. And then at the very end, hey, let's go for 2. Let's do it. We got 1 play, believes in his guys, again, puts the ball in Richardson's hands, and it was a massive win. This was huge for the vibes. This is a big-time vibes win, in my opinion. So the way that he called this last drive, the trust that he showed in Anthony Richardson, that to me is the stat that told the story. And honestly, just Richardson overall, how impressed I have been with him over the last 3 weeks. Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young building up cases to say, bench your young quarterback, because when they come back after they are benched, they play a lot better. Even I know Will Levis didn't technically get benched, but Will Levis missed some time due to injury. He watched somebody else play quarterback. He got to sit back there. And Will Levis has even played better as of late. And so we're building up some cases here with young quarterbacks getting benched, us not giving up on them, and them coming back and playing.
I mean, maybe you're just building the case that these young quarterbacks are still young.
Oh,
right?
Wow. What an incredible concept. It gets lost on what feels like everyone.
Imagine them not just walking in like Andrew Luck or C.J. Stroud and lighting the league on fire. Imagine that, right?
The exception. It's not the standard.
Imagine,
it's the exception.
Exactly. Imagine it just taking a minute. I remember it took Eli Manning, 3 years to really get right? 3.5?
Peyton Manning led the league in interceptions his first year,
right?
That's
the classic one. I mean, Josh Allen had 2 years where he was relatively bad, right? This is the argument of player development, right? Doesn't that still matter? But no, Richardson, I think what you like about the 2 wins they've had recently is, you mentioned it, adversity in the fourth quarter. They were behind. They had an opportunity, and they struck, right? And both times, I think, interestingly, you're seeing Shane Steichen getting a rhythm of Richardson using his legs, especially down on the goal line. We see it every week with Josh Allen, the threat that can be. He's starting to get there with Richardson, and it certainly helps to have big Quentin Nelson pulling in front of him.
Oh, what an awesome play there for him.
Yeah,
to pave the way.
Oh, he was doing it all day. Quentin Nelson, he was, I think, just barely outside of that top 5, but he was terrific in this game, too. I'm going to look at the other quarterback, actually. I thought Drake May was really good in this game. 24 for 30, 238 and a touchdown. That touchdown was his big-time throw on the corner route to Austin Hooper. I thought just a terrific throw. 5 more carries for 59 yards. 76th grade. You got to think about him putting up a 76th grade. I don't care who the defense is. If he has grades like that in any given game with the Patriots situation, when his 2 best targets are Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry, and they're last in the league in pass protection, Drake May is the guy. I don't see any question. I know we've had debates all year about should he play, is he going to get hurt, this and that, the other thing. He's every week getting more in rhythm of this offense. And this was actually, I would say, a less flashy start, and I'm almost encouraged by that because it's not all the improv and sometimes the nonsense you can get late in the play. He played in rhythm in this game. He was really good. Again, the interception really wasn't his fault. The ball was a little out in front of Hunter Henry, but it wasn't turnover worthy. He was just really solid. And New England, again, should have won this game, and Drake May is the biggest reason for it.
Jonathan Taylor, getting worried. Getting worried about him.
Can I tell you something? Remember before I told you the last 5 weeks about Aaron Jones being the second lowest graded back in the league?
Oh, Jonathan Taylor's the lowest?
Yeah.
He doesn't look right, man.
Something's off.
He doesn't look like he's got juice. He's way too young. I know he's got all sorts of, the mileage from his days when he was at Wisconsin, and obviously they've used him a ton during his time in Indianapolis. But man, I didn't think we were ready for drop off. I can't believe that we're already here with the drop off with Jonathan Taylor. But he doesn't look right this year. I know he's dealt with some injuries.
Do we think he's playing through something? And they're just not saying. I know they're supposed to say, but I mean,
at this point, because it looks like he just doesn't have the same juice. So he's my most disappointing because this is it's becoming more of Anthony Richardson's offense that has to be on his shoulders if they don't believe that Jonathan Taylor can do it. And what's the stat you said? Since when?
The last 5 weeks.
Last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Lowest graded back in football. That's not good.
When this is a team that wants to run the ball, they've
right.
got a good offensive line. You've got the option, the ultimate option quarterback. It's tough.
I'm worried about Jonathan Taylor in this game and just moving forward. I genuinely hope that he is playing through injury because people might look at it and be like, "What are you talking about? 96 yards on the ground? Like that's really good. Offensive line's blocking really well in front of him." 3.8 yards per carry average, didn't even have a 4.0 yards per carry average. His longest rush in this game was 9. So, I mean, it's decently healthy every time you give him the ball. It's like 4 yards. But, again, you're playing behind one of the top 3-5 offensive lines in football, even with all the injuries that they have there. So, you'd expect a little bit more explosiveness there from Jonathan Taylor, and I just don't see it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you mentioned that offensive line, my most disappointing. I'll go on the other side. The Patriots' defensive line, 49.7 grade as a unit in this game, their lowest of the season. Generally, I've really liked the way their front seven has played most of the year, but struggled in this one. Guys like Keon White and Christian Barmore really struggled. Like 7 pressures and 1 hit, no sacks from their defensive line in this game. The Colts are a tough old line to play against. Even, they got a third-string center in there who graded well. Got Bernard Ryman back, Quentin Nelson pulling around, mauling people all the time. It was a struggle up front for the Patriots on defense in this game, and we saw that. I think even the 2-point conversion you mentioned, quarterback power. Let's go right at it. We think we're more physical than you, and we're going to win the game, and that's what the Colts did, and I think that was kind of representative of what went on for a lot of the day on that side of the ball.
Jets-Seahawks, next game that we're going to here. Thought it looked like it could have been a Jets victory, but the second half told a different story. We'll get to that in a second. Seattle wins this one 26-21. Top 5 graded Seattle Seahawks players in the Leonard Williams revenge game.
Big cat.
Top of the list, 92.6 overall grade, thanks to his pick 6, which was just incredible to watch, unless you're a Jets fan. Safety Julian Love with the 86.1. Overall grade cornerback Tyreek Woolen with a 79.3, safety Kobe Bryant with a 77.5, and then wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba 72.5. Another homecoming game for Geno Smith, 75.9 overall grade for him. On the Jets side of things, cornerback Sauce Gardner, his best game of the season? Gotta be. I don't have them all right in front of me, but 90.1 feels like it has to be. It's been a bit of a struggle of a year for Sauce, but good to see him on the top of that list. Linebacker Quincy Williams with an 87.0, linebacker Jamian Sherwood with an 82.2, center Joe Timmon a 76.7, and then guard John Simpson a 76.6. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers in this one a 64.7. Dalton, what's your stat that told the story here?
Okay, every week I watch the Jets because I'm a sicko. And there's just something that comes up that's like, oh yeah, it's that too, right? And in this one, it was the penalties. 12 penalties for 83 yards. I believe it was 7 or 8 of them in the fourth quarter.
That's a lot of penalties.
4 of them on the Seahawks game-winning drive. 3 of those 4 on fourth down. We're talking about Will McDonald lining up offside. We're talking about a Solomon Thomas horse collar. We're talking about pass interference at any level you can think of. And look, this has been a problem since Robert Saleh was the head coach, and now it's still most of his staff there, just without him. The 4th most penalized team in the NFL this year. They've been somewhere around that each of the last 3 or 4 years. It's just another same old Jets problem that comes up, and it really cost them this game, especially the penalties. They had a meltdown with penalties in the fourth quarter. Even as the Seahawks, they were clawing their way back, but it was ugly. This was an ugly game for Seattle, especially from the beginning. That first half, I guess a little bit of I don't want to say it. Should I say it? A little bit of jet lag.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, I had to. Anyway, see, I told you before the show. I try to get all the stupid things I say out before the show, and some of them.
You left one.
Yeah, some of them just stay in there. But anyway, no, the Jets and the penalties, among all the other issues they usually have with the offense deflating even more as the year goes on, and their defensive line and everything else. In this game, their defense played relatively well outside of the penalties, but it was way too many penalties.
Remember the Thursday night football game that they played the Houston Texans, and it just looked like the worst football game anybody's ever seen in the first half?
Oh, yeah.
And we sort of talked about it like, okay, well, this is kind of the Jets, right, where they make offense look very difficult at times. When it's not going well for the Jets, it looks like it's just incredibly difficult to move the football. That was them in the second half. I mean, this is the story of sort of the Jets offense with Aaron Rodgers out there at quarterback. And, they scored 21 points in the first half. They go into the first half with a lead. 0 points in the second half. 0. Their second half possessions, 7-play punt, fumble, 3 and out, turnover on downs. Ball game. That's it. That was it. Got to be more efficient than that. Got to be able to sustain it. Now, you look at and.
We have no reason to believe they're going to be.
No, and we don't. And so that brings up my most disappointing, because I can wrap this into it. As a Bucs fan myself, Tom Brady was fantastic for them when he came over to Tampa Bay. Obviously won a Super Bowl. They were great the year after. They were even great the year after that, I would say. They were going through some, Byron Leftwich is not an NFL caliber offensive coordinator. They're going through some problems along the offense.
Still won a division too, though.
Right.
Found a way.
No. And so I want to be clear, like, they still got it done. But Brady had one of the lowest time to throws in the NFL. He didn't want to get hit. Leonard Williams, after this game, they're kind of asking him about playing Aaron Rodgers. And he said, we look stuff up and we watch tape on him, and he doesn't want to get hit. And there are a lot of times when he throws the ball before he should, and he just tries to make up for it by anticipating even further into the future to say, like, okay, well, normally this is a hike, 5-step drop, I'm looking a certain way, I'm letting it fly, putting enough touch under it, it's sort of like a timing throw or whatever, and it's just going to be a basket throw or a back shoulder throw or whatever it is. Now, he does not want to get hit. Understandable. I wouldn't want to get hit against NFL defensive linemen. But Leonard Williams is basically saying, if you disrupt him at all whatsoever, even if you're not about to sack him, like if you give him any sort of pressure, he is getting rid of that ball so fast, and he's just trying to anticipate it even like a step further. And it's not working out. And that's why the offense looks so difficult, because he's not willing to hang tough and make the hits. So I looked it up. Rodgers, 60.6 adjusted completion percentage when pressured this season. That's 30th in the NFL. He hates getting pressured. That ball is coming out of his hands as soon as possible. So Leonard Williams sort of gave us something here to be like, oh, yep. And there were complaints about that when Tom Brady was with the Buccaneers. Now, the complaints weren't too loud because they were winning. But when they stopped winning, when they started to really struggle more, especially in Brady's last year, we heard it more and more and more. He doesn't want to get hit. He's not doing what he needs to do to give his wide receivers that extra half second to break free, and then that half second for him to deliver the ball the way it needs to adjust for how the wide receiver is breaking free. Because Rodgers isn't even waiting for that point. He's just trying to anticipate it. So that's the most disappointing for me is Rodgers seems to be going down the same path that Brady was in his final year.
It's the part where and I think you also watch him, especially over the last few weeks, to me, and just go, I don't think he can do anything else about it. I think that's
in the first half there was that one series at the goal line, right? Where he was running all over the place.
Sure,
he looked like a 24-year-old.
There's that one here and there,
but he doesn't want to do it all the time.
He can't do it all the time.
You're right.
And this is a guy 2 years ago. He was playing through a broken rib and a torn thumb ligament, wasn't he? Last year tore the Achilles. This year has had some leg injuries that he doesn't want to disclose, but you can clearly see, especially like in that Minnesota game, his hamstring. I mean, he's been getting hit. If you're on a football field, you're going to get hit. And if you're thinking about getting hit at any position, not just quarterback, you have an issue, and everyone's going to notice. And you know what they're going to do when they see you're afraid to get hit? They're going to hit you.
Of course.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Of course.
And they're going to want to hit you. And like Leonard Williams said, he was like, listen, all we have to do is disrupt this guy. And I'll tell you what, Leonard Williams sure did disrupt Aaron Rodgers, didn't he? How about a 92.6 grade for him in this game in the Leonard Williams revenge game? I'm sure he does. He's not a big fan of both sides in New York City at this point. But 4 pressures, couple of sacks, 3 stops. The pick 6 is one of the best plays you're going to see all season. They run a 0 blitz, but of course they drop off a nose tackle Leonard Williams because, well, what's Aaron Rodgers going to do to beat a 0? He can't move like that anymore. He's not going to take off and run like maybe a Josh Allen would. So drop someone where you think it's going to be hot. And that's actually the second time this year we've seen this. The Minnesota game, the Andrew Van Ginkel pick 6. Same thing. 0 blitz, drop where we know they're going to be hot. This offense is really predictable. Get someone right in there. House it. Also, I got to say, I did not know Leonard Williams was that fast. He was blazing.
I knew he was that fast. I do love the fact that nobody faster was in range to get him, right? Because when he picks that off, you're rooting for a fat man touchdown. And when it was very clear that the only ones who had a chance to get him were the offensive linemen, well, then you knew he was going to score.
He was flying. I had never seen
a good 40, didn't he?
Probably. Well, he was a freak. There was some people in that draft class I remember who were like, "This is actually the best football player in this draft."
His 40-yard dash was a 4.97, which is 77th percentile for defensive tackles.
Hell, he looked faster than that. Honestly, he was blazing, I thought. I mean, he must have had the adrenaline going because he took off and he was just gone. But no, I mean, just an incredible play. And I think, again, it kind of shows you the Jets offense and how predictable it is. That's the second time this year we've seen a pick six like that because we know Rodgers is going hot and we know where he's going hot too. And it just so happened that Leonard Williams is the guy who had the big game, of course, against the Jets, the team that drafted him after running that 4.97 and got the big pick six and a couple of sacks and one of the best games. I haven't checked. It might be the highest grade of his career, honestly.
My most impressive in this one was Zach Charbonnet. Not a ton of work, only 4 carries, 28 yards, but 3 first downs. So 3 out of the 4 carries that he had, he was able to get a first down. He had a pretty high forced missed tackle per attempt average. He had that 1 touchdown in this one, and it was just very nice to see Zach Charbonnet as the spellback to Kenneth Walker because I think that Charbonnet is one of the best RB2s in the NFL, and he doesn't always get the recognition for it, but I think he's fantastic, so wanted to shout him out here.
Most disappointing for me we're going to add to the list of struggling running backs in Breece Hall. Now, 12 carries for 60 yards is cool, but 2 fumbles and 1 lost in this game, plus a drop in the receiving game. Breece Hall's got a 57.5 overall grade this season.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah,
Even for as bad as it's been.
Yeah, you know what'll do it? 6 fumbles and 6 drops.
That'll do it.
It's really been since week 1. He had a fumble that they lost against San Francisco, and it's just been the same. The ball security with him, and I don't know if it's a lack of focus with the way the season's going or what, but Breece Hall, not the same player this year that he was last year, and then it's just another thing going wrong for the Jets.
Eagles-Ravens, not exactly playing out the way that we thought that it was going to, especially someone who bet the over in this game.
Can't imagine someone doing that. With the Eagles, with the highest graded defense in football,
unfortunately,
I couldn't imagine someone doing that.
Unfortunately, I can.
Wow.
Eagles win this game 24-19. It was just imagination because it sure as hell wasn't reality, let me tell you. Philadelphia Eagles top 5 graded players in this one. Offensive tackle Jordan Mailata at the very top of the list with a 94.5. Linebacker Zach Bond, 83.4. Cornerback Cooper DeJean with a 78.6. Wide receiver A.J. Brown, 76.6. And then offensive guard Landon Dickerson, a 74.5. Jalen Hurts in this one, a 63.4. On Baltimore side of things, offensive tackle Roger Rosengarten with a 79.6. Cornerback Marlon Humphrey, a 74.9. Tight end Mark Andrews with a 72.1. Offensive tackle Ronnie Stanley with a 71.1. And then defensive tackle Travis Jones, a 70.1. Lamar Jackson, 70.6. Stab the told story. What do we got?
All right, this was my favorite one of the week to do.
All right,
you ready? Vic Fangio did it again.
Okay.
So coming into this game, let me go on first down for the Ravens. Okay. Second in the league in yards per play on first down, I believe, behind Detroit. Third in EPA per play. And on design carries coming into this game on first down, 6 yards a carry. All right. In this game, 4.6 yards per design carry on first down. Now, that's still pretty good, but it's not the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens run you over, right? They run the ball on first down, then they get the layers of their offense going. Vic Fangio just said, no. Okay. Remember, was it week 3? Let's go back to week 3. Eagles Saints. You remember what I said about that game with Vic Fangio and Saints?
No.
I know, it's a long time ago. Extra defensive lineman.
Oh, yeah, okay. I remember
this
you talking
when
about
it was
this.
With the Saints. Now, in the case of the Saints, it was, listen, Clint Kubiak, you're not running outside zone. You're not going to do it. You're going to beat us any other way than outside zone and deep shots. Okay, cool. The Eagles generally don't run a lot of 5+ defensive line, a lot of 5-man fronts on their defensive line. Coming into this game, they were doing it 11 times a game. All right, so 77 plays they had done this year. 27 of them were in that Saints game. So in any other game, 5 times a game, that's all they do. In this game, 16 times they had 5 defensive linemen on the field, 11 of them on first down, and the ones that weren't were obvious run situations for the Ravens. 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4, there was a 4th and 1 mixed in there. 9 design carries for the Ravens when the Eagles had 5 defensive linemen out there, 26 yards. Vic Fangio on first down said, especially in the first half of this game, said, you're going to throw on first down whether you like it or not. Because we don't think your weapons can beat our secondary. Because we have DeJean and Mitchell and Slay and Gardner-Johnson and Blankenship. We think we have the best secondary in football. So you can throw it over these 5 defensive linemen, or you can run right into the teeth of it. But that's what we're going to do, and you're going to throw when we want you to throw. And that's what started happening. And what happened was it didn't – I'm not going to say it rattled Lamar, but I think it kind of rattled Todd Monken a little bit. And as they couldn't just punch through the wall, and as the Eagles' defensive line was winning, especially inside with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, and Josh Sweat was good, and Nolan Smith was kind of the movable guy who's like the fifth defensive lineman by nature, but he's athletic. He can move around some, or he can come down on the edge. He was kind of that X-factor guy. He was almost the guy they had to read, was Nolan Smith, of like, shit, is he staying off the edge, or is he in the slot, or what are we doing here? While the linebackers go and clean it all up. So Vic Fangio, again, extra defensive linemen, make the Ravens do something that they don't want to do. And that's what happened. And eventually, as you got into the second half, even when this game was still 14-12, we're missing field goals and all that stuff, but 14-12, and you could feel it. The Ravens just stopped running the ball on first down. And even when the Eagles were getting back in four-man fronts, it got shaky. They were just like, we can't do it. Maybe a time here and there, but they got out of their element on first down. And there was enough incompletions and even sacks and mistakes from Lamar. Just enough. You're not going to shut him down completely where it was, okay, he's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just a little. Because it's pick your poison with the Ravens offense. Now, this was as shut down as you could possibly get against the Ravens. But it's about picking your poison. Because you know if Derrick Henry goes for $150 and Lamar goes for another 100. And Lamar, no yards on design carries in this game. 0. All his yards were on scrambles. So when you talk about Vic Fangio just saying, fine, if you beat me passing, fine. And we've seen this more. If you look at the numbers lately, Denver tried it, and Lamar beat him through the air. Okay, Pittsburgh did this, and they won the game. Eagles do it, they win the game. You spread this out, and you create one-on-one matchups up front with five-man fronts, you might give the Ravens some problems. If Lamar beats you through the air with the receivers, which is not an elite receiving core still, cool. But now I think teams are starting to sell out to go, okay, we can't let Derrick Henry beat us, and we can't let Lamar beat us on the ground.
Yeah, there's no guaranteed blueprint to beat elite quarterbacks. You kind of just have to play it a certain way and say, this is our bet this week. Will it pay off? And I think that you did a fantastic job just laying out the fact that it's like, okay, well, even when they play the Saints, right, they go, we can't cover everything. You guys have built the team well enough.
You're not going to beat us the way
Lamar
that you want to beat us.
Dual threat enough. The wide receivers are good enough. Like, we can't cover everything, but we will take away what you want to do most, and we will challenge you to adjust. And if you do, probably going to beat us. If you don't, that's at least a recipe where we will slow you down. We talk about that all the time, right? Oh, Lamar, you never shut him down. You just have to slow him down. That's how you slow him down. So I think that's a brilliant point by you. My stat that told the story sort of goes into my most disappointing because it sort of goes into a little bit with what you talked about. Ravens in the red zone, they were 1 for 4 in the red zone before that last-minute touchdown that really didn't change anything. So this was a team that once they got into the red zone, the Eagles really clamped down. Their defense really clamped down. They could not score in the red zone. They could not capitalize there. And then when you get to even the opportunities where they had to kick field goals, when they were in field goal range, Justin Tucker continues to be an Achilles heel of this team. And it sucks, and I think that everybody on Twitter is basically all saying the same thing. It's like, man, you hate doing this to a legend, future Hall of Famer. Sucks. But you got to have some hard conversations to make a tough decision here. Because right now, he missed from 47 and 53. He also missed an extra point. Doug Clawson, who covers the Ravens, tweeted this out. The Ravens have lost by a combined 22 points in their 5 losses. Justin Tucker has missed 22 points in just those 5 losses. Not even just like, throughout the season he's missed that many. He's missed that many points in the losses that they have had. Justin Tucker is 70% on his field goals this season, which is 30th in the NFL. And I believe I brought it up on this show. It might have been the preview show, but I'll say it again. Gordon McGinnis, who's our content director, he's also a Ravens fan. He watches every single Ravens game. He pointed this out to us. He thinks that Tucker's leg doesn't have the strength that it used to, so he thinks that Tucker is swinging his leg sort of a little bit harder, getting more of his body into it, and you will see when Tucker misses a lot, he is pulling it. He is pulling the football. It doesn't often miss, going off the side of the foot, or something like that. As a righty, he's often pulling it, and it's missing on that side towards the line of scrimmage. That is how we saw him miss the extra point and one of those field goals. And then the other one, I think he was just trying to overcompensate, and he blasted it outside of the uprights on the other direction. So he's all over the place right now. I saw somebody say like on Twitter that it's like, oh well, I don't think it's a leg strength thing. I absolutely think it's a leg strength thing. It's not just a mental thing, but now it's obviously turning into a mental thing when you miss this many kicks throughout the season because Justin Tucker hasn't done that. So Statham told the story to me as Ravens didn't capitalize in the red zone, and once again this season, the kicking game became their Achilles heel of why they were not able to stay as close as they needed to.
It's entirely plausible that it may have already cost them a division title.
Yeah.
That's where we're at, and it could cost them what they thought was going to be a potential Super Bowl run.
Well, a Super Bowl season, right?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's a problem, and they're in a tough spot because any other team, they go, okay, get this guy out of here, we're done. It's Justin Tucker, though, right? And I think he still has the big contract, at least for a kicker, and he's still Justin Tucker, and he may make the Hall of Fame one day. It's a tough spot for John Harbaugh to be in, I think, with a guy like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought about this during the game. I don't know if he would ever do this, and I don't know how the numbers really work out. But like, you're in a situation where I don't think the Ravens would ever cut Justin Tucker. Like, if anything, they'll keep 2 kickers. Like, they're not going to cut him in the middle of the season.
Can you practice squad a guy with a contract like that?
I don't think.
Or does that expose him to the rest of the league? That's probably what it does.
Well, it would expose him to the rest of the league because you can pick a guy off the practice squad, but. I don't think the Ravens would ever cut Justin Tucker in the middle of this season. I wonder if Justin Tucker is close to retiring at all. I wonder if he retires.
In season?
Like, I wonder if I wonder if he has another bad week, right? Really bad week where he's the difference between the team winning and losing. I wonder if he goes, okay, if I really care about the Baltimore Ravens thing, I have to know that I'm not the best option for them. And I wonder if he would retire in the middle of the season because he knows that they would never cut him. But I also don't know if, these guys at the NFL level, they're such fierce competitors. I don't know if that would ever cross their mind. So maybe not, especially a guy who has as much confidence as we have seen Justin Tucker have. That crossed my mind yesterday. Of everybody's like, oh, you got to make the tough decision. You got to cut Justin Tucker. They're not going to cut Justin Tucker. They're not going to do it.
I have a thought.
He's meant too much to that franchise.
Maybe. This is a weird thought.
Go ahead.
What if you took him off kickoffs? Would you think would that do something? What if he was just, because there's some teams that their kicker is just their field goal kicker, and then they have the punter as somebody else kick off, right?
So you're saying you would just have him?
Yeah. What if he just did that?
Kick off?
No, just field goal.
No, Dalton, field goal is the problem.
No, I know. But what if it's like...
How does it solve anything?
What if it's something like, okay, that's all we'll focus on. And we'll just... And you mentioned the leg strength thing. Seriously. What if he's just older and he's just a guy who just kicks field goals? Because even at the end, think about Vinatieri with the Colts.
I don't think that helps us.
Maybe not. Try something.
I would think that you kicking off warms up the leg.
Anything. Stand off.
Because at that one, you don't have to be pinpoint accurate. You're just blasting the ball down the field.
Kicker psychology is weird, and it's certainly a lot different than mine. Maybe just stand off to the side and kick off.
Field goals are the issue for him.
Well, right. Just have him do that then.
He's already doing that in practice.
So, practice ain't the games. Just an idea. I'm coming up with any idea. You know how
you're trying. You're trying.
You know how.
Look, I appreciate.
You know
how
kicker psychology is.
Ravens fans appreciate you for trying.
Sure.
I'm over here talking about him retiring mid-season in December. So maybe my idea is crazier than yours is, but.
Well, maybe we're both right. You just retire from kickoffs.
It's hard for me to think that the Ravens can win a Super Bowl with Justin Tucker as their kicker. It's really weird for me to say that out loud, but at this point in time, assuming they're not going to get the 1 seed, okay, they're going to have to win 4 games in a row against the best competition that they have faced yet this season in order to win a Super Bowl. You're telling me that you've got faith in Justin Tucker for 4 big games in a row where field goals are paramount, that he's not going to have this come up again? I don't know, man.
Try something. Try anything. They're not going to do it.
What if you had him punt and do kickoffs and do field goals?
He'd be in shape, that's for sure. That's going back to college.
What if you'd have him play running back?
They got a pretty good
You
one.
know how some guys say, like, hey, you just got to get popped one time and then you feel great?
Well, he's just got
First carry, don't give it to Derrick Henry. Just give it to him right up the middle. Just have Justin Tucker just get popped one time, and then he'll just feel alive.
There are quarterbers who say that's a thing. I think even hasn't Josh Allen said that before? Where he's like, I want to take that first hit.
He's like, I got to get hit. Maybe Justin Tucker's just got to get popped one time at the beginning of the game.
Maybe it's just weird. That's it.
Did we miss it? Oh, Jordan Mailata is my most impressive. 94.5 overall blocking grade, 95.6 run blocking grade. Just an unbelievable mauler in this game. 31.3 impact run blocking percentage. That means, folks, that 1 out of every 3 play that Jordan Mailata had in this game, he was earning a positive run blocking grade. What? That's nuts. 0 sacks and 1 pressure allowed as well as a pass blocker. This dude was dominant.
Yeah, the league leaders, like for the season, usually sit around 24, 25 there. If you're up above, at or above 30, you're doing some sicko work in the run game, that's for sure. And you talk about guys who might be the best left tackle in the league. We've talked about him several times recently now since he's been healthy. He's just an animal. I'll stay on the Eagles side. This is another thing we've talked about before, but I mentioned all the stuff about 5 D linemen and all the fancy stuff and everything going on. None of that matters if your linebackers aren't up to snuff. And I'll tell you what, Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean, what a story these two guys are. To clean up all of that behind that defensive line, 84.4 run defense grade for Bond, 85 for Nakobe Dean, 6 run stops. And when you're playing Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, the big thing is tackling. They only missed 2 tackles together in run defense all night. A spectacular game. This Eagles defense has 3 layers to it.
Studs. You
got great players up front. Carter, Davis, Sweat, right? Linebacker with these 2. The secondary we talked about. This is by far the team the Lions should be most afraid of in the NFC. I don't even think it's close, especially with this defense. And then most disappointing right on the other side of that, the Ravens inside, we've been talking about their offensive line a lot this year, a lot better since Patrick McCarry moved to guard, but McCarry and Daniel Faalele really struggled at guard in this game, combined for a 38.2 overall grade. McCarry gave up 9 pressures. It was part of the difficulty of that 5-man front also is you take away a lot of double teams. You have a lot of one-on-one blocks. Even in the passing game, if they're going to drop back and pass against it, a lot of one-on-one blocks. The Ravens on the offensive line didn't get it done. The Eagles really out-physicaled them on both sides of the ball.
Buccaneers, Panthers. Bucs win in Carolina 26-23. They tie things up in the division race with the Atlanta Falcons with the win. I'm going to be honest with you, though. I'm going to sound a lot more positive about the Carolina Panthers than I am going to about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this one. Bucs top 5 graded players.
Tied for first, Trevor.
Top 5 graded players for the Buccaneers. We'll get into it. Mike Evans at the very top of the list with an 88.4. Offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs an 86.1. Running back Bucky Irving with an 83.0. Guard Cody Mock with a 79.2. Edge rusher Anthony Nelson with a 77.6, including a huge forced fumble to basically win them the game. Quarterback Baker Mayfield in this one, a 39.2 overall grade. On Carolina's side of things, guard Damian Lewis, a 90.0. Cornerback Shaw Smith-Wade with an 89.7, got an interception in this one. Wide receiver Adam Thielen, a hell of a game, 72.5. Offensive tackle Ike Ekwonu with a 71.6, and then cornerback J.C. Horn, a 69.0. Bryce Young in this one, 79.2. Sad to tell the story, Dalton.
Why so many bad vibes, Trevor? You're tied for first. You got to win against.
They should have lost this game.
Against a relative.
They should have lost this game.
Why lose?
Baker played poor enough to lose this game.
Why lose when you can win?
Well, sure, obviously. Baker played poor enough to lose this game. Todd Bowles' defense remains Swiss cheese, even with guys getting back healthy. I mean, they get torched every single week. This was not an exception. Bryce had 4 big-time throws, 5 big-time throws in this game. I mean, Bryce played extremely well in this game. And outside of an Adam Thielen touchdown that wasn't a touchdown, which probably should have been a touchdown, and then Chuba Hubbard fumbling the ball when they were in very obvious field goal range to hit a chip shot to win the game in overtime, Tampa should not have gotten out of this with a win. Now, all that to say, a win is a win is a win. And I will take another division title for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not saying that I won't. But when you look at this team moving forward and you talk about any sort of a playoff run at all whatsoever, I mean, they are not going in the right direction. They're getting healthier, but the team's not really getting better. They're completely volatile on offense. Bucky Irving's obviously a stud for this team, and I don't know where they would be without him. But Baker was so bad in this game, as evidenced by his 39.4 PFF passing grade. All sorts of turnovers. In fact, I'll just start there. Seth told the story, Bucs turnovers versus Carolina's clean game. And this is sort of what I had before Chuba Hubbard's fumble, which is the only turnover that they had in this game, which sucks for Chuba because he's been having a fantastic season, and that fumble is painful. I mean, I saw a tweet where one of the Carolina beat reporters took a picture from the press box of the field completely empty. Everyone is gone, and Chuba Hubbard's still just sitting on the bench in his pads, pissed that he fumbled the football. And it was one of those plays where it's like, he wasn't even being reckless with the football. He wasn't being LaShawn McCoy. He wasn't holding that thing out there. He had it tucked, and it just so happened he's getting rolled up to tackle, so there's a little bit of extra time for the defense to get their claw in there and rip the football out, and that's just what Anthony Nelson did. Now, I don't want to take anything away from the Bucs and obviously forcing that fumble. It's a great play by them, but it's one of those where you look on the other side of things, 2 interceptions, 3 turnover-worthy plays, 2 fumbles in this game from the Bucs, and both of the fumbles weren't lost. So you had 2 interceptions, you had 3 turnover-worthy plays, and you had 2 extra fumbles that could have very well gone to the other team that just happened to not. And the 1 turnover that Carolina has kills them. So that's why I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, Bucs, dub, easy, no question about it.
Well, no, certainly.
Should have lost this game. They should have lost this game. They didn't. They better be thankful for it. They're tied now with the Falcons, but it just does not seem to be getting better from 2 fronts. 1, Baker's consistency, which is, I talked about Kyler being a roller coaster.
Baker is what he is.
Baker's a you better be this damn tall to ride the roller coaster. Because it's thrilling, and when it goes good, I've said this before, not a player in the NFL that's more fun to root for than Baker Mayfield. And that's the damn truth. It's so much fun. But with him, you have to live with the good and the bad. I talked about the most turnover-worthy plays in the NFL being Kirk Cousins. Second most, Baker Mayfield.
I think he was in the top 3 or 4 of that last year, too.
So you just have to deal with the up and down, and you could deal with the up and down of Baker Mayfield when you got a defense that's playing well. Bucs defense hadn't played well in 6 weeks. I don't have all the games right in front of me to remember exact performances, but it feels like this defense has been a shell of what it has been even over the last couple of years, even with guys getting healthy. So a little bit of a rant there. They win the game. Again, a win is a win. Carolina played better than they did. Outside of maybe Bucky Irving and Mike Evans.
All right, I don't want to stress you out there. Okay, I'll give you the positive vibe here.
Okay.
First of all,
go ahead.
Gotta love some of the names on that top 5 for the Bucs. Mike Evans was fantastic.
True.
Future Hall of Famer. Tristan Wirfs was fantastic.
As expected.
Maybe a future Hall of Famer. Cody Mauch, that was actually his highest graded game of his career.
Love
big
that.
time.
Love
and
that.
you mentioned Bucky Irving. And Rashad White had a pretty good day, too.
Rashad did have a good game.
Listen, these Bucs running backs had 224 rushing yards. 82.3 rushing grade between them, 8 forced missed tackles, 10 first downs, 6 explosives. You look at it, I know Chuba's day was tough with the fumble, but it was also tough on Carolina's side. Their backs only had 61 yards and no explosive runs. The difference, and what at least can keep the Bucs from being so volatile, right? Because we've seen games in the past where Baker plays like this and they lose by 30, right? Whereas, okay, he could turn around and hand the ball off. And this offensive line is getting better. Obviously, Wirfs is in. Gedeke's healthy now. Cody Mauch's playing better. Graham Barton's grinding through as a rookie, right, at center.
It's also the worst defensive line in the NFL.
A win's a win.
I understand that.
Look, I can remember 2 years ago, that last year with Tom Brady, where they were completely incapable of running the ball. And last year, and last year they were still bottom 10. They could, in the last 2 years, if they played a game like this with the rest of the team, they would have lost by 30. Absolutely, you're right. But we got something else to go to. You want something fun? On either side of the ball, most impressive. You know Bucky Irving's the highest graded rookie in football?
Wouldn't shock me.
At any position.
Wouldn't shock me.
Number 1.
Wow.
This is how good he's been. He is, one of just 4 backs with an 80-plus rushing and receiving grade. I believe it's Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Bucky Irving.
King.
That's how good he's been. And Rashad White, in more of the secondary role, was really good in this game. The Bucs won this game eventually. A little bit of luck involved, sure. Because the third team I'll say it with, they ran the living hell out of the football. And the fact that they can go to this when the last 2 years they absolutely could not. 2 years ago they were historically bad. Last year they were, I think, bottom 10, somewhere in there. Now they can really run the ball. And if Baker is good part of the roller coaster, Baker, you got a balanced offense with a good developing young offensive line that can really play. I think they're still a threat. And I think, honestly, the way the two teams are playing, they look like they're going to win this division.
I also think the Tampa's going to win this division.
To get away with this win is still big. Look, it can be the Panthers, but you beat the Panthers by the same margin the Chiefs did.
Bucs could have beat the Chiefs, too.
Maybe should have.
Same plane.
NFL is a game of close games, moments, inches, all that stuff. Now you're tied for first place. I think you look at it and you get away with Baker's worst game of the season. You got 5 games to go win a division. Let it rip.
My most impressive in this game, because I knew you were probably going to do Bucky Irving. One of us had to do Bucky Irving. I've talked about him a million times. I didn't want to have to talk about him again. I was going to let somebody else talk about him again. Bryce, though, 26 for 46 in this game, 298 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, but 4 big-time throws. Also a 75.2 passing grade under pressure in this game. Bryce looks good, folks. This is a great Bryce Young stretch that we have been on. This is the best, certainly 3 games that he has put together. What's 4?
Four games now.
This is the best 4 games that he has put together, obviously, of his NFL career. And it feels like he is just getting more and more comfortable and more confident. There are times when I wish that he would navigate the pocket a little bit better. And when I say that, I mean be willing to step up in the pocket as opposed to bailing very far out of the pocket. But it's also what he did at Alabama, so he's very comfortable doing that. So obviously you still see some good plays from him. I'm going to be honest. I saw Mina Kimes say this on Twitter, and I couldn't agree more. This game was best case scenario for the Carolina Panthers. I know it's a massive gut punch to lose it the way that they did with Chuba Hubbard fumbling the football, and as a fan, you innately just want your team to win the football game. Bryce looks awesome, and you lost for a better draft pick. Win.
Boy, how good would Mason Graham look in a Panther uniform?
Oh, yeah. That's the dream for them.
Yeah.
That's the dream for them.
That'd be fun.
Maybe number 1 overall, even.
That'd be fun, too. Imagine that, a D-tackle going number 1.
Hasn't happened since 1994, believe.
That hasn't happened since I was born then.
Wow.
August of 94. Wow.
Yeah, it would have happened a couple months prior.
Yeah, look at that.
It's crazy.
I've never seen it.
You've never
I didn't even get a chance.
Haven't been around for it.
I didn't get a chance.
Wow. We really should change it. We really should change that for you. Anything else?
Just had a most disappointing Josie Jewell. Tough day. 7 negative grades in run defense, kind of the victim. He was the one who missed the tackle on the last run that set up the game-winning field goal, 4 catches, 64 yards in coverage. Just his worst game of the season. Good player. He's had other good ones, but it was a tough one in this, and somebody had to be the victim of the Bucs and their apparently terrific running back tandem.
Also, shout out Chase McLaughlin, making some clutch field goals. Want to make sure I shouted that out as well. Rams-Saints. Rams win the game in New Orleans. They overcome the voodoo that is playing in the New Orleans Superdome. 21-14 is the final score in this one. Top 5 graded Los Angeles Ram players. Linebacker Omar Spates with a 94.1 overall grade. Offensive guard Kevin Dotson, a 90.9. Edge rusher Jared Verse, an 89.6. Wide receiver Puka Nacua, an 83.7. And then rookie safety Cam Kinchins with an 81.4. Matthew Stafford in this one, an 83.4 overall grade. On New Orleans side of things, a beat-up offense, so some new names at the very top, but shout out to him getting in here. Number 1, Dante Pettis, top of the list, 75.3. Wide receiver Kevin Austin Jr. with a 72.7. Edge rusher Carl Granderson, a 71.5. Offensive tackle Talise Fuanga with a 66.5. And then safety Jordan Howden, a 65.5. Derek Carr in this one, a 73.6. Is that the total story?
We've gotten to a point in the year where, as you might have noticed, I kind of go with, we have a big enough sample where we go, this is why a team wins, and this is why a team loses. And the Saints' offensive line is why they will win or lose football games. In their 4 wins, 83.9 overall grade. In their 8 losses, 55.8. In this game, a 50.2 overall. They're worst since week 7, especially in the second half. The run blocking really broke down. 3.3 design yards per carry in the second half. When they had a lead for a bit, it was a kind of tight, low-scoring game. They were still trying to run the ball and use their whole offense, but that's really where that was the number 1 concern with me for the Saints going into the year. When they win, their offensive line plays well, but it plays pretty poorly more often than they play very well, and that's pretty much just rides with the 4-8 record that they have.
For me, it's the Rams' run game. I talked about Joe Mixon being a big reason why the Houston Texans can feel like they can win every single week because the floor is so much higher because of Mixon's presence on the team. I feel the same way about Kyren Williams with the Los Angeles Rams. To me, the floor of their offense is so high because of what Kyren does. 104 rushing yards in this game, 15 carries, 80.5 rushing grade, 8 first downs. I mean, this dude's a first down machine. He never goes down on first contact. He's always looking to make somebody miss. He's so smart. He understands running behind zone. He understands running behind duo concepts a lot. Those more power plays that the Rams have been running a lot more over the last 2 years. I mean, Kyren gets it, man. And I just got so much faith. I mean, look at some of the Rams statistics in this game. Hold on, I'm going to pull this up from the passing side of things, because we all think about, Rams offense, it's McVay, it's Stafford, it's Nakua, it's Cooper Kupp. Stafford in this game, 14 for 24, 183 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Puka Nakua, 5 catches, 56 yards. DeMarcus Robinson, 2 catches, 49 yards. Cooper Kupp, 3 catches, 17 yards. Tutu Atwell, 2 catches, 39 yards. I mean, they're not throwing it all over the place, but they don't have to because their floor on offense is so much higher with Kyren Williams out there. So to me, his presence is exactly what told the story, because you didn't need a 400-yard passing game for Matthew Stafford to win, because you had a guy like Kyren to be able to hold the ball, hand the ball off to. So big-time win down in New Orleans, which we know is tough to get those wins. Most impressive or most disappointing? Sort of give you dealer's choice here.
I'll start most impressive. Why
Okay.
not, right? Okay, so, I like the transition there, too, with Sean McVay. Look, his best offenses are able to run the ball, right? I mean, we've seen that in the past. They want to run the football. That's what a McVay or a Shanahan offense is going to do. And I'll tell you, his best defenses always had Aaron Donald on them, didn't they? Because, that's all he's ever had. This year they don't. But what they do have is Jared Verse. And Jared Verse, I know there's 5 weeks to go, but if it's me, I'm handing him Defensive Rookie of the Year. 89.6 overall in this game. 6 more pressures. I believe he's got multiple pressures in every single game this season. The game-winning hit at the end on 4th down on Derek Carr, that was almost a strip sack, but his arm was moving forward. That's okay. Jared, you won the game anyway. Remember I mentioned Bucky Irving's the highest-graded rookie in football? Let me extend that list a little bit. It's Bucky Irving, it's Jaden Daniels, it's Brock Bowers, and then it's Jared Verse. Okay, he's the highest-graded defensive rookie in football. The balance there is what I like, too, with the pass rush, with the 6 pressures, and the run defense. All right, I got another one for you. Here's your list of defensive linemen this year with 80-plus grades as a run defender and a pass rusher. T.J. Watt, Khalil Mack, Dexter Lawrence, Cam Hayward, Jared Verse.
Not bad.
He's not just the defensive rookie of the year. He's already one of the best edge players in football. That's the home run that the Rams hit. They drafted the defensive rookie of the year. And I know Quignon's playing great. I know DeJean's playing great. There's some other guys around the league who are playing really, really well. It's Jared Verse. I'm not getting off this. I think the race for me is over, because he's just going to continue to do this. He's already their best defensive player.
Yeah.
He's already one of the best edge players in football. He's the best defensive rookie in football. You could not have done any better after Aaron Donald retiring than having Kobe Turner, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Byron Young, Michael Hoyt, all these guys they have up front. You couldn't have done any better. And Verse looks like an absolute superstar, and he did again.
Nope, I love it. I was a big fan of Jared Verse really the last 2 drafts, when I felt like he was in the 2024 NFL draft. I felt like if he would have put his name in the 2023 NFL draft, I felt like he would have been a top 10 pick there as well. It was a little bit deeper and a more talented draft class in 2024, which pushes him down just by proxy.
He would have been right behind Will Anderson, right?
I think the Raiders would have drafted him at, 7 instead of
over Wilson.
Over Tyree Wilson.
It's reasonable.
I think he would have been right there with the Las Vegas Raiders. So Rams fans can rejoice that he did not do that. Most impressive for me, Saints receiver diversity. I'm gonna go to the New Orleans Saints in this one, because you don't have Chris Olave, don't have Rashid Shaheed. I think a lot of people looked at this Saints offense, myself included, and was like, "Where's the ball going to? I'm supposed to trust Derek Carr to throw to kind of these nobodies." And they're not nobodies. They're very clearly making a name for themselves. Some we've heard their names before, but obviously like Dante Pettis, but like Calvin Austin Jr. making a big name for himself. 9 different receivers, tight ends included. caught the football. Derek Carr completed 24 passes to 9 different receivers. They were getting it done in so many different ways. And again, it is just more props to Clint Kubiak, in my opinion, who is not afraid to dial it up, scheme it up, draw it up, whatever you want to call it, to whoever he thinks can get the ball in an advantageous position. And I think that for Kubiak to come into this situation and for the fully healthy version of the New Orleans Saints to look as good as they did out of the gate in those first 2 weeks, and then at this point in time, for so many of their top playmakers to be down and him to still find ways to move the football, I think that Clint Kubiak's been brilliant, man. I really do.
I think if they can get healthy next year with Olave and Shaheed, right, I think they're one weapon away, and I've had this thought for a long time that weapon is Luther Burden from Missouri. They need yards after catch. Like, if they add that guy into this offense, like I do like with Kubiak that you've got Fuaga at left tackle who's playing better. You got Penning at right tackle who's still a little up and down but playing better lately. The long-term quarterback picture might change here, but there's at least a clear vision all season of what he wants to do. And the problem is execution, interior offensive line play, and their defense often not giving him enough chances to win. But Clint Kubiak, who knows? This is a team that fired their head coach. Who knows if Kubiak will even be there next year? But he's going to be somewhere next year.
100%.
Because he has this
head coach or offensive coordinator. He will be in
for
the
all
NFL
the Saints struggles. For all the Saints struggles this year, Clint Kubiak is the last guy I can blame.
Yep.
And there's a lot of limitations on this team. He's going to be somebody in high demand if New Orleans doesn't keep him. You're absolutely right.
Most disappointing, real quick for me, just Saints defensive line overall. Ridgeway, Turner, Brzee, all these guys had run defense grades below 45. 29.3 run defense grade as a team. So obviously I'm praising Kyron Williams for the great job that he did, forcing the missed tackles and playing as well as he did and efficiently as he did. On the other side of things, I felt like New Orleans could have tried to contain him a little bit better, and they really struggled to defend the run in this game. So most disappointing is just the Saints defensive line, and I just put out a 3-round mock draft today over at PFF.com that you guys can check out. It's heavy on the defensive line for the New Orleans Saints, so you can go check that out there. What about you? Most disappointing?
Just Alontae Taylor. He's getting a shot to play outside instead of the slot with the Marshawn Lattimore trade. Just struggled in this game. Allowed 3 catches, 56 yards, all first downs. Missed a couple of tackles. Big pass interference in the fourth quarter that set up the Rams touchdown that gave him the lead. So I think he's just making the adjustment now to playing outside with Lattimore gone, and they're kind of finding out the hard way whether or not he's a piece they can stick with out there.
We're going to turn the clock back to the holiday games, the Thanksgiving Day games, and the Black Friday game. But before we do, we got to talk about that hat that you got on your head.
It's a nice hat, isn't it?
It's a fantastic hat. It's one of the best hats that I've ever had, and not that exact one, but one very similar. Melon is the name of the company, folks. A hat is a staple to any sort of outfit, whether you're going to work out, whether it's a social event, whether you're just walking out the door, whatever it is. You want to feel good wearing a hat. And the second you pick up a Melon hat, you feel good about putting it on your head. You know that it's durable. They're 5 times more durable than any regular hat out there. They've got all different types of shapes and styles and colors of hats that you guys can see on the screen if you're watching this live. These aren't your average hats. They're great at, not being super sweaty and smelly if you're wearing them all the time or if you're wearing them for a workout. I mean, like, I work out in one of mine, and it honestly, still, I've had it for a month and a half. It looks like I just took it out of the box yesterday. It looks fantastic, even with all of the workouts that I've already put it under. The Hydro Collection, it's if you're jumping in a pool or a lake or if you're running in the rain or whatever, it's fantastic when you're going through wet conditions. They've got a Thermal Collection. Obviously, it's getting cold around the country. Help you keep warm. You got to check them out for yourself. Melon, MELIN.com. It's the world's most durable hat. They're built to last. They're fantastic. They're comfortable. They're structured. And you just know the second you put it on your head, this is a hat that is worth it. Go check them out. All the different styles, all the different types that they have. MELIN.com. You can put these hats to the test yourself, and I guarantee they're going to pass the test. Bears and Lions.
Oof.
Thursday afternoon game. This is the first one, right? Things were the first one for us. Opened up our Thanksgiving slate. 23-20, Detroit Lions come away victorious. This is the final game that Matt Eberflus coached as head coach of the Chicago Bears. Let's take a look at the top 5 graded Detroit Lions. In this one, guard Kevin Zeitler. having an all-pro year. Crazy. 34 years old. We thought this guy was going to retire. He might be hanging him up. He's having one of his best seasons ever. Unbelievable job from him. Offensive tackle, Penei Sewell, 88.9 overall grade at number 2. Frank Ragnow, we have at number 3 at an 84.0. Edge rusher Zadarius Smith, a 77.5. And then number 5, Al-Quadin Muhammad with a 73.2. Jared Goff in this one, a 78.9. On the other side of things for Chicago, Darnell Wright, the highest graded Chicago Bear in this one, 78.5. Cornerback Kyler Gordon, a 77.1. Guard Matt Pryor with a 74.3. Wide receiver DJ Moore, 74.2. And then linebacker TJ Edwards, a 72.6. Caleb Williams in this game, a 62.4. Stat that told the story here, Dalton.
Simple. If you're preparing for a short week and you have the privilege, like the Lions, to have an offensive line that they do, it's not real hard to prepare. You go, we're going to line up and we're going to get behind these 5 guys and we're going to beat the crap out of somebody on Thanksgiving. And that's what they did. They, 5.9 yards per carry in this game, especially in the first half. They milked almost the whole clock. What did they have, 22 or 23 minutes just in the first half? 140 yards after contacts. Both backs, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, running well. 10 first downs on the ground. And the right side of that offensive line, like you mentioned, Ragnow, Zeitler, Sewell, monsters. The Lions, this game got tight because they kind of let it get tight. They kind of let off the gas a little bit in the second half, and Caleb, of course, has kind of the Jekyll and Hyde going of playing well in the second half when they need to come back and do all of that. But at the end of the day, the Lions stuck to their identity on a short week, and they ran the hell out of the football, and that's what made the difference in getting that lead and making it just barely insurmountable enough.
I originally had this as most disappointing, but I'll actually flip it to the stat that told the story. Bears' first quarter offense. You have brought this up before, earlier in the season, how the Bears have just struggled mightily out of the gate. In this game, started the game with 3 and outs. You can't do that against the Lions. Game's already going to be over. It's like what we talked about with the Commanders and the Titans. Like, snap your fingers. It's 28-0. Now, it wasn't 28-0 in this one, but it felt pretty demoralizing watching the Lions just continue to go to work on the offensive side of the ball, and you can't even get a first down through your first 3 possessions. So, to me, this game was going to be a almost insurmountable challenge when you had those three and outs to start this football contest, and you got close at the end. You got into a chance where you had the ability to tie the game up with a field goal, but I think that then sort of goes into my most disappointing is Matt Eberflus overall, who's no longer the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Bears 4-8 on this season. Eberflus was 14-32 overall. He was 5-19 in one-score games. He was 3-19 on the road. I mean, it's just no matter how you slice up his record, it was not good enough. Now, I want to go into the late game situation because the Bears actually had a chance to tie this thing up. So they're in field goal range. The clock's winding down. They got a timeout. Caleb Williams gets sacked. And there's 32 seconds left in the game. And a lot of people are screaming, you got to call a timeout there. And Matt Eberflus after the end, and they don't call a timeout, and then all of a sudden, like, okay, well, now Caleb gets up, and the offensive line gets set, and now he's getting in the play, now he's relaying the play, now he's seeing the defense. Now all of a sudden, there's like 6 seconds left on the clock. He hikes the football, he throws it deep down the field, boom, it's incomplete, the game is over. It looked unbelievably mismanaged in the moment. And Eberflus after the game, now I want to be fair to him, because I don't hate what he said afterwards about using the timeout. It is not logicless what he said. There is logic into him saying, well, we wanted to keep the middle of the field open. So on the next play that we had, we knew that we had to get because of the sack, we knew that we had to get more yards to get into field goal range. So I wanted us to be able to call any play, not just a play to the sideline, to be able to get a couple of yards and then be able to call that final timeout wherever we ended up. Because, you got to think about this too. Like sometimes, okay, you get the catch and you feel like you got to go down. He wanted his guys to think, okay, well, I can go get yards after the catch as well. I can make it an even easier field goal. And then whenever you go down, you call a timeout. I understand how they could have gotten to that point. The issue that I have with it is how unprepared literally everyone on the team was outside of Matt Eberflus for that to be the case. If that's your logic, everybody else needs to be on the same page. And it was very clear nobody was on the same page. When Caleb Williams got sacked, Caleb thought they were going to call a timeout. Offensive line thought they were going to call a timeout. Wide receivers certainly thought they were going to call a timeout. So then they don't. Then Caleb gets up and looks at the sideline, and he's getting things in. Okay, all right. Well, now I got to call the play. Now I'm getting the play in my headset. We're not calling a timeout. Okay, I'm understanding the logic now. All right, now I got to relay this to my wide receivers. The wide receivers are like, okay, I guess. Now Caleb's like, as a rookie, remember, like this isn't a veteran quarterback. This is a rookie. So Caleb now has to sit back in shotgun and assess the defense. He can't just, okay, this is how the defense is exactly aligned. I've been in the league 10 years. I can immediately snap the football and know where to go with it. He's a rookie. So to me, it was a complete fundamental fumbling of communication and preparation. I don't totally hate where he was coming from, wanting to use the timeout after a completed catch there. But what we talked about yesterday is you can have that logic. But once that clock gets to 20 seconds and you realize that you're still nowhere near snapping the football, call the timeout. Because then you have adequate time to hike the football, make a throw. You get there, you could run up to the line of scrimmage. Oh, well, I guess that they wouldn't have been able to spike it because it would have been third down.
So the spike was off the table
because it would have been fourth down. But you would have been able to maybe get the field goal unit on.
Generally, it's if you're going to run the field goal unit on with the clock running, you need about 16, 17. All right, so if you take a timeout at 32, 31, okay, when Caleb gets sacked.
If you would have taken it at like 22, you probably you could have maybe got
And this is the thing, if you got to 22 to 24 and saw nobody's on the same page, you could even do it then. Right. And then go, okay, listen, quick slant, 8 yards, get down, run it on, right? And I think that's what a lot of teams do. We've seen that win games before. At 32, you can comfortably do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't, if you do it right away, because most teams after a sack in the last minute, they're calling a timeout.
Right.
Even if it's their last one, just reset and create a new, fresh situation because you've got receivers running down the field that have to get back.
I like using the 30-second mark as almost like a placeholder for when I would use a timeout anyways.
Right.
If I got one left.
So if let's say you're at 31 and you take a sack and you call a timeout, the whole field's still of plenty of access to you.
Yes.
All you have to do then, because if you're running the field goal unit on with 22 left, you're good. You're comfortable. You just got to go out there and execute. And again, if you're rushing it, it's about 16, 17. But the fact that there were 2 windows to call a timeout there, and like you said, it just looked like nobody was prepared for the situation, that's what really ultimately did him in. And it's not the only late game situation where we've seen the Bears struggle over the past, 3 years now. I mean, it's just kind of become a part of the fabric, hasn't it? But that's the problem, is you can't have that be 5-19 in one-score games makes no sense whatsoever. You're supposed to be something close to 500.
Close to 500.
Over
right.
that big
the league is
over that big a sample.
Yeah. You are bad at what you do if you are 5-19.
Yeah. I mean,
and very clearly, this is another example. They were not prepared for this. Right.
I mean, it's just one of those things that generally regresses, but that can happen. Situational football is everything in the NFL. It's why the Patriots used to win every week. It's why the Chiefs win every week now, for as much as, okay, they're not blowing teams out or whatever. They win the situations, and the Bears haven't done that. And that does come down to preparation and coaching.
I actually don't know the answer to this. Can anybody call a timeout on the team?
From the sideline, it's supposed to be the head coach. But on the field, like if Caleb thought, which I'm not even
Caleb though. Like if Keenan Allen understands it's an absolute shit show.
I think so.
Could he have called a timeout?
Especially because that happens too. Like if he's the one that catches the ball and then goes down, he could call it. If you're on the field, I just can't remember
because I know like some high school sports, it's like okay, like captains can only talk to the ref or whatever, and it's like I wonder if can head coaches or quarterbacks only call timeouts?
It's rare, but I'm pretty sure anyone on the field can call a timeout.
I think so,
as long as someone sees it. But on the sideline, it can only be the head coach.
Yeah. Not that I'm putting blame on the players at all whatsoever.
No, zero.
But
absolutely
no. I'm not at all whatsoever. I just think how funny would it have been as like an absolute mutiny if like Keenan Allen, for example.
Would have been a mutiny. It would have saved the game.
No, I know.
I'll take a mutiny if it wins me a ball game.
No, I know. But you know what I'm saying. Like if Keenan Allen calls that timeout, and then they go, oh, okay, yeah, good timeout, and they kick the field goal and they go to overtime, whatever, even if they win or lose, that locker room's the same after the game. That locker room's like, hey, buddy, because that was the report afterwards. Is Eberflus, tried to give the team a speech of like sticking together when times are bad or whatever, and apparently it erupted. Like the players were not having it, and that's obviously why he gets fired.
Because this is the 4th game recently with late game stuff that they've lost.
Anyways,
that they feel like they could have won.
Most impressive, Detroit Lions. We got to talk about them a little bit. Zadarius Smith continues to look fantastic. 1.5 sacks in this game, 18.4 pass rush win percentage over the last 3 weeks, 21.3 pass rush win percentage, 2 sacks, and an 81.9 pass rush grade. I mean, he has been everything that they could have possibly wanted from him when they traded for him at the deadline. So Zadarius Smith continues to be a key piece for this team that seems to suffer injuries. And it doesn't matter, which is crazy that they are this good.
You hope for their case it doesn't matter. Could matter eventually.
Maybe.
I mean, now they've lost Malcolm Rodriguez for the season now.
Right.
Those guys dropping like flies the other day. It's
still playing well.
It could be a problem, but
most impressive. Who you got?
I'll tell you what, Penei Sewell at right tackle. He doesn't just block people; he steals their souls, man. It's every single week with this. No pressures allowed in pass protection, first of all. 8 positive run blocks and a 91.1 run blocking grade. And I'll tell you mentioned it with Kevin Zeitler at right guard. Well, he must be real comfortable playing between Sewell and Ragnow, just going, okay, I can do my assignment. I don't got to make up for anything these two do. But on the short list of best offensive linemen in football in that conversation, Penei Sewell's absolutely there. I mean, we talk about it all the time. He's everything they ever hoped he would be and some. Just dominant. You get off the right side of this offensive line against any team, and they're rolling. It's too easy for them.
Next game on Thanksgiving, Giants-Cowboys. Dallas wins this game 27-20. The top 5 graded players from the Dallas Cowboys. Micah Parsons at the top of the list with an 89.9. Guard Tyler Smith with an 84.6. Guard Brock Hoffman with a 76.8. Linebacker Eric Kendricks with a 76.4. Cornerback Deron Blaine with a 75.6 to round things out at number 5. And then Cooper Rush, 58.1 overall grade. I keep wanting to say New England. New York side of things. I don't know why I kept trying to say New England there. Brian Burns, 81.7 overall grade. Wide receiver Malik Neighbors with a 78.3. Linebacker Bobby Okereke with a 76.1. Cornerback Adoree Jackson a 75.8. And running back Tyrone Tracy a 73.9. Drew Lock in this one a 68.9 overall grade. What's your stat that told the story here?
Honestly, it's another game here where, to me, it wasn't so much about who played better so much as who didn't play worse. Is that the way I'm going to put it? Yeah, I'll do that. We'll go with that. The 2 turnovers.
I can't even argue with this one.
The 2 turnovers from the Giants, to me, were the difference in this game. The DeMarvion Overshown pick 6, first of all, and he's my most impressive guy. 9 tackles, a pick 6, a fumble recovery. On the other turnover, the Eric Kendricks strip sack, both of those plays led to touchdowns, one directly for Overshown. That's one of the best defensive plays you'll see all year. He hammers the running back. I think it was Tyrone Tracy who tried to chip him. Jumps up, tips the ball to himself, and houses it. I mean, that's again, he's been at times a real spark for them at linebacker. And I know the Cowboys haven't had a whole lot of young players emerge for him at linebacker, but Overshown's been really solid for a lot of this year. And a team-leading 79.1 run defense grade in this game. That matters with a Giants team that wants to run the football. But I think that's what you have really here is the Giants with the 2 big mistakes on the 2 turnovers. And they also had 13 penalties, just kind of representative of, like, you could feel, especially getting towards the end of the first half, this game was coming down to, okay, which one of them is going to screw this up? They're both playing with backup quarterbacks, both having bad seasons.
Right.
We're kind of, who's going to play just the slightly cleaner game that gets them out of here with a win? And in this one, it was Dallas.
That's why my stat that told the story is actually Drew Lock, because this one shouldn't have been as close as it was, but I think Drew Lock playing decent is the only reason why it was even close. 21 for 32 in this one, 178 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, but 4 carries, 57 yards, and had that rushing touchdown. At least gave him a spark. So this game was closer than I thought that it was going to be. Most impressive for me is Tyler Smith, 70 snaps at left guard, 42 pass blocking snaps, 0 sacks, 0 pressures allowed, and a 21.3 impact run block percentage. Tyler Smith just played very, very well in this game, which you love to see there for Dallas. And then I'll just keep going right into my most disappointing Giants run game. Tyrone Tracy, 79.9 rushing grade in this one, 0.22 missed tackles forced per attempt, 24 of his 32 yards after contact to me. They're just not helping him at all. This is an extremely dynamic player out of the backfield that, in my opinion, gets no help from the guys up front, gets no help when it comes to the pass game alleviating any sort of threat in the box or lightening up the box for him to be able to run and make guys miss in open space. There's just not a lot of space to be had for Tyrone Tracy. So it's most disappointing for me because the Giants have a dynamic player in the backfield. He just can't do anything. There's only so much that you can do as a running back when the offensive line is playing as poorly as they are and when the passing game is as limited as it is in New York. So to me, it's disappointing that Tracy's just been bottled up as much as he has.
Agreed, and I saw some struggles on the inside of the trenches as well on defense. The interior, I thought the edge guys played well. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau caused some problems as pass rushers, but inside they didn't get a single pressure from a defensive tackle in this game, and you saw Dexter Lawrence leave in the third quarter. He is actually out for the season. I believe it's with an elbow injury. So tough times for the Giants in the trenches, and that's going to continue to be a point of emphasis for another offseason when they just can't seem to figure it out outside of Andrew Thomas when he's healthy on offense,
right,
and Dexter Lawrence when he's healthy on defense. Again, the edge players were good, but the interior kind of let them down in this one.
Good news for them. Currently have the number 3 overall pick for the Giants. So
it's probably a quarterback, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but why is it not a good thing?
If you can't block anybody, what's the difference?
Oh,
it's all it all goes together.
I guess, sure.
I don't mean
you'd rather get the quarterback than not have a chance to get the quarterback, though.
True.
Shadur Sanders has operated well with no offensive line before.
Sure has.
We saw it last year.
Darn right.
Maybe he'll do it again in New York. We'll see.
Which side of New York? That's the real question.
Wow.
Yeah, see
wow.
that? Sorry, I'm just getting my hopes up. Go ahead with
you are getting your hopes up with that one. There are some things the school can't teach you, right? Like how to handle the financial world. We didn't have classes specifically for that. Instead, we were learning pre-calculus for whatever reason, including how to provide for your kids when it comes to its finances. Fabric makes it easy for you to set up an investment account for your child that grows now with them and helps prepare them for their financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kid's investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. While your kid cannot invest while they are minors, a UGMA account allows you to invest on their behalf and gives their investments more time to grow. All online, setting up an account could take you just 5 minutes and getting started with as little as $1 a day, and then you can manage your child's account and monitor their investments right from your phone. Fabric is partnered by Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families like yours for over 50 years. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric/PFFNFL. This is a paid promotion for the Fabric UGMA product and not for investment advisory services. Portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Custodial services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Terms apply. Learn more at meetfabric.com. Dolphins Packers was the night game on Thanksgiving. Packers win this one 30-17. Top 5 graded Green Bay Packers in this game. Tight end Tucker Kraft with an 89.7. Running back Josh Jacobs an 86.4. Safety Xavier McKinney a 78.0. Cornerback Keyshawn Nixon with a 73.5. Wide receiver Jaden Reed a 72.1. And then quarterback Jordan Love a 77.7. On Miami side of things, defensive tackle Calais Campbell with a 79.3. Offensive tackle Teron Armstead a 76.0. Defensive tackle Zach Seiler a 75.0. Wide receiver Jalen Waddle a 73.4, and then tight end Jonnu Smith a 68.5. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa a 73.7 overall grade in this one. What's your stat that told the story here, Dalton?
Boy, the Packers are really good when they play clean football, aren't they? When we don't get, maybe the occasional Jordan Love roller coaster interception and all of that, but you look at the first half of this game, actually the entire game, but no turnovers. No turnover-worthy plays. No sacks allowed. And in the first half, not a single negative play. That's as clean as it gets. And honestly, if the Packers were going to play like that, there's not a chance. There might not have been a chance the Dolphins could have won this game anyway, even if they played well. Because the Packers, this is, especially in the first half of this game, this is what they look like when they're rolling on all cylinders. They just didn't make any notable mistakes to speak of, while the Dolphins made a few early ones and the Packers jumped on them. And that was pretty much that. When the Packers are rolling like this, we start talking about them again as, okay, maybe a threat in a playoff scenario to Philly or Detroit, right? Mm-hmm. Because we know how good Jordan Love can be. We know how good this offense and is balanced and all that, but it's just about not making mistakes, especially with the turnovers. I think that's a big thing, is when they don't turn the football over, they're as dangerous as any offense in the league.
I agree with you completely. I mean, I think that we talk about Philly, we talk about Detroit. Minnesota and Green Bay are right there, man. They could absolutely spoil the season of either of those two teams and go on a run themselves. I think that is well within the cards for them. Seth told the story for me. I hate being the one to bring this up. I wish it wasn't true. Dolphins in cold weather.
You're correct.
I hate to bring it up because I think it's stupid. I think that us talking about, like, oh, they can't play in the cold. They kind of can't play in the cold. Now they warmed up in the second half.
Ha! Sorry, had to do that. That was good. But anyway.
Dolphins in the first half, negative 0.19 EPA per play. Dolphins in the second half, positive 0.25 EPA per play. It's a completely different football team. Completely different offense. So here's some stats. The Dolphins have lost the past 12 regular season or postseason games in which the temperature has been below 40 degrees. The last 12. Again, I think the cold weather thing is stupid. It's real.
It's part of the game.
They've lost 12 in a row when the temperature is below 40 degrees. Dolphins' most recent victory in a game where a kickoff was at a temperature of 40 or below was their 34-31 overtime win in Buffalo in 2016. It's been 8 years since they've won a cold weather game. And the game was completely out of reach. I don't want to say out of reach, but like they weren't going to win the football game after the first half. It took them way too long to get things going. And this is also, I want to go into this one too. Most disappointing for me this entire season is their inability to get Tyreek Hill the football. The inability to get Tyreek Hill going. That is my most disappointing here for the Miami Dolphins. In the first half of games, okay, not just this one where it was cold. In the first half of games, the entire season, Tyreek Hill only has 251 receiving yards. We're 13 weeks into the season. It's one of the best, fastest, most explosive, easiest separating wide receivers in the league. I understand they didn't have Tua for a stretch. Get him the football. 251 receiving yards through 13 games this season. That's a 1.17 yards per route run average. In 2022, he had 971 through the first 13 weeks of the season and a 4.71 yards per route run average. The year after that, 2023, 617 with a 2.74 yards per route run average. This year's not even close. You're basically at a third of what you were last year, let alone the year before that when it's even worse.
And they still run the highest rate of screens in football, and somehow it's not getting to him.
Get this guy the football, man. That is to me so disappointing of this entire Miami Dolphins season is their inability to get Tyreek Hill the football, whether Tua has been in there or not. And this game was another example of them not being able to get Tyreek Hill the football. And I think that to me is much more of a damning stat than, oh, it was cold. So.
Oh, I'm in the it was cold boat. I mean, because we've seen this.
Obviously, I just think it's annoying to talk about it's cold. Miami's going to be bad.
Well, it's annoying because most people go, they're from Miami, duh. Okay, that's not how that works. It's because.
But it kind of is now at this point.
Well, sort of, but it's also how their team is built. Their team is built on what, Trevor, on offense?
Explosive plays?
Speed.
Oh, speed, sure. Yeah.
And you get in the cold and you get in the snow, and we saw in Bills Niners. Did any of those guys look fast out there?
No.
No, you don't have the footing. What wins those cold weather games? Trench play and physicality and tackling and running people over and good defense. And the Dolphins aren't as good at any of those things in this game. 39 rushing yards. And the worst part of that, they didn't even try to run the ball in this game. I think Tua had 50-something dropbacks. I forget the exact number. They allowed 5 sacks and pass protection, which on the percentages, as much as they drop back, is mediocre. The bigger thing to me, the effort on defense. I know it's a short week. I know it's Thanksgiving night, all that stuff. Trevor, they missed 23 tackles.
That's bad.
23.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything close to that all year.
That's terrible.
If you miss 14, 15 tackles in a game, you had a really bad night. They missed 23 tackles. And you could see it on defense. It's like we talked about the Bills wanted to go out there and put an extra lineman out there and hit somebody. The Dolphins went out and looked like they didn't want to hit anybody on defense. I just don't, and I've been talking about this secondary all year. They were in on it too. It looked like they just did not want to play in the cold and hit people and play the type of physical football that the Packers wanted to play. That's why this question persists. It's not just, fluky stuff and losing by a field goal and this and that. We see them go out there in the cold and get whacked because they're just not as physical. I mean, you have to run the ball. You have to play defense. You have to tackle. You have to play December NFL football. And the Dolphins just don't do that. And their team isn't even built for that. There's a lot of times the theory is, the Dolphins can make a run if they have home field. When are they getting home field?
Right.
You got Josh Allen in your division and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Either prep to play in the cold or not.
Yeah.
Or this is just going to keep happening.
No, I'm with you. My most impressive, I'll sort of build off of what you were talking about with the Packers playing really clean football. This is one of the most impressive first half teams in the NFL. I mean, I talk about how I'm frustrated with how slow Miami starts out of the gate, just, whether it's with Tyreek Hill or just overall throughout the season. Packers are the complete opposite. Over the last month, Packers are 5th in offensive grade in the first half. They're 1st in rushing grade in the first half, so they established exactly what the hell they want to do right off the bat, rushing the football. They're number 1 in the NFL at doing that, and then they are 4th in points scored in the first half over the last 3 games. It's a 16.0 points per half average in the first half. So the Packers, very comfortable with who they are, very comfortable in their identity, and very comfortable the second the ball is snapped, doing exactly that. There's no warm-up period. There's no, let's wait and see what the defense. Let's see kind of what the defense is like, and then we'll react, and then we'll be good at it. No, boom. They're setting the tone every single game, and I love that about this football team. Absolutely love it. So that's my most impressive part about it.
For me, it's Jordan Love running that show, and I know this is by no means the flashiest game that he's played all year, but I think it's just the fact that 88.5% adjusted completion. I know it's a 76.2 passing grade. It's solid. It's one of the better marks of the week. It's not elite stuff. It's not flashy stuff. 0 turnover-worthy plays. I just think this felt like, to me, when I watched this game, the best all year that he's just managed the offense and went about it in an efficient manner. This was a game, not even just no turnover-worthy plays. I didn't even feel like there was any passes in this game that were in any danger. Right, it was a clean, efficient performance, and I think that part is going to set up some of the bigger plays that we know Jordan Love can make. But he's a guy who has to ease up sometimes on those deep shots, right? Sometimes he'll throw a deep ball where you're like, why? Or you think about the pick 6 against, I think it was against the Rams earlier in the year, and if he can cut out those plays where you're just like, what the hell are you doing? Then we can get back to the Jordan Love that he was in the second half of last year that got raging hot and could maybe even have the ceiling to win the whole thing. But I think this was a good step in the right direction for him. I think as efficient, as clean as a game as he's played all year.
Raiders-Chiefs, final game that we're talking about here. This is the Black Friday game. Chiefs ended up winning this game.
Somehow, some way.
We say it all the time with the Chiefs with their 11-1 record. It feels like, I'm not saying they're a bad football team, but holy cow, they had a couple of these here. Chiefs win 17-19. Their top 5 graded players that we have in this game. Tight end Noah Gray's at the top of the list with an 87.7. Guard Joe Tooney with an 85.2. Center Creed Humphrey with a 79.1. Cornerback Josh Williams a 79.0. And linebacker Drew Tranquil with a 77.6. Patrick Mahomes in this one, 72.6 overall grade. On Las Vegas' side of things, surprise, surprise, Brock Bowers, number 1 highest graded player that they have with a 90.6. Defensive tackle Jonah Lialu with an 80.1. Running back Sincere McCormick with a 72.0. Wide receiver Jacoby Myers with a 71.3. And then Colton Miller at number 5 to round things out with a 69.9. Aiden O'Connell in this game, 77.9 overall grade. What was your stat that told the story here?
Okay, so if you're a heavy double-digit favorite and you want to keep a big underdog in a game, just get down to the red zone and then stop. And that's where the Chiefs were in this game. 1 for 5.
Yeah, 1 for 5.
1 for 5 in the red zone. They were just not finishing drives. They ran 12 plays in the red zone, Trevor, inside the Raiders' 20, and negative 9 yards on those 12 plays.
Tough to do.
That's almost that's impressive. That's an accomplishment right there almost. That goes in the Stat Hall of Fame, I think. That's incredible. Offensive grade before the Raiders' 20, 78.6. Offensive grade in the red zone, 43.4. Everything just shut down. The Raiders bent, but they never broke on defense, and they only gave up 19 points, which in Kansas City is that's good enough to win you a ball game, and it darn near did outside of some usual Chiefs weirdness at the end that happens. You talk about New Orleans and the voodoo. I think in KC, I don't know what they whipped up this year, but it's every single week with this. But no, the Chiefs, they kept the Raiders in this game by not finishing drives, and that's very often what can happen when you have a double-digit favorite playing against a team they're certainly not supposed to lose to, but that's why this game went down to the wire.
I'll go to the other side of things, and much like I did with the New York Giants, except I think that this was an even better example of it. I'm going to say the stat that told the story is the Aiden O'Connell offense, and it's the fact that this game was close, and they could have even won this game here at the end because of how well Aiden O'Connell played. 23 for 35, 340 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 big-time throws, and 2 turnover-worthy plays. I like Aiden O'Connell, man. I liked him at Purdue. I liked him coming into the league. I felt like he should have been the starting quarterback over Gardner Minshew. Now, obviously, he suffered the injury where he missed, about a month and a half with that hand injury, the thumb injury. And so that obviously goes into his playing time not being as much as it could have been this season. But I think this guy actually has more of a future to be a starting quarterback than I thought of Gardner Minshew going into the season. I thought that we saw that this past week. He played well enough for this team to win the football game. So that is my stat that told the story. Double-digit underdog in this one, and yet it came down to the wire, and it was a early Jackson Powers Johnson snap where he thought, the guy was coming early and he thought that they were going to have a free play, so he was just trying to snap it early. It ends up biting him in the butt because not only does that not get called because what was it? The clock was not running. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a situation where if the clock wasn't running or was running, it would have been called differently, but because it happened to be the way that it was, they let the play run out. The Kansas City Chiefs actually get it. They don't blow the play dead, and that's how the game ends. So outside of that snap there, Aiden O'Connell did exactly what he needed to do to get his team a victory. They just kind of came up short because of one botched play, but I was impressed with Aiden O'Connell in this one. You're most impressive and most disappointing.
So we know these two are going to go together for me. We know the Chiefs' interior offensive line is spectacular, right? Those 3 guys on the inside, Tooney, Humphrey, Smith, just terrific. And in this game, again, they were just terrific. 2 pressures allowed between the 3 of them, both by Joe Tooney, combined for an 82 overall grade, 84.6 pass blocking, really good run blocking between the tackles as always. The Chiefs' interior offensive line is the highest graded in the league by 10 points. All right?
It's a lot.
The Chiefs' tackles in overall grade rank 30th. This is where
that is a discrepancy.
Whether it's Jawan Taylor on the right side and you have Wanye Morris in this game, and sometimes we've seen Kingsley Suamataia, it's this offensive tackle situation, as much as the Chiefs just playing the high wire act, is going to be the reason if they don't three-peat that they don't. I mean, you talk about Taylor and Morris in this game combined to allow 12 pressures and 3 sacks. I mean, a 43.5 run blocking grade. So not getting it done on either end. And you just sit there and you go, how much longer? How much longer can they continue to go? And I know the interior 3 are amazing. They're all 3 of them could be all pro players. How much longer can we have? Because the only teams below them are Tennessee and New England. And we know what we think of those 2 teams' offensive lines. I mean,
bad.
Real bad. And the Chiefs at the 2 tackle spots are just as bad.
Yep.
How long before, look, you play the Bills, it's Rousseau and Miller. You play the Texans even, it's Anderson and Hunter. You play the Ravens, they got a good D-line, right? You play the Chargers, have Mack and Bosa and Thule. You're going to play good edge rushers in the hell, you play in the pits. If you play the Steelers, all those guys we talked about earlier, if you can't pass protect off the edge, your life gets a lot harder, and they can't do it at all. I've never seen something like that. First on the interior 3 by a mile, and 30th on at tackle. I don't know how they're getting through that.
I think I said this last week. The Chiefs aren't quite what the Eagles were last year when the Eagles were 10-2, and then it all fell apart. And I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to fall apart. I don't think that's possible with Steve Spagnuolo and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But it does feel like at times they're hanging together by like scotch tape and paper clips. Like that's sometimes how it feels with the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll see. We got a month until the playoffs before things really obviously start to get serious. But they're teetering that line of like, man, getting pretty damn lucky right now to have the record that they have. And it's not the same exact vibe that it was with the Eagles last year, but they're barely holding it together. So they got to make sure that they finish the regular season strong. I'll do most disappointing so we can end on a high note with most impressive. Most disappointing, Raiders coverage team, 37.4 coverage grade this week, 61.7 open target percentage, and just one forced incompletion this entire game from the Raiders coverage unit. Most impressive, though, Brock Bowers. We're basically on record-breaking watch right now, so we're updating things every single week for Brock Bowers. 14 targets, 10 catches, and 140 receiving yards and a touchdown in this one. He now has 84 receptions and 884 yards on the season. A reminder, Sam Laporta has the rookie tight end record for most receptions in a rookie season with 86, so Bowers is only 2 catches away from that. Mike Ditka has the record for most receiving yards as a tight end with 1,076. So he is less than 200 yards away from that as well. Now you've got to dream even bigger, okay? I don't think he's going to do this, but Travis Kelce has the record for most receiving yards as a tight end overall with 1,416. I don't think that Brock Bowers is going to hit that, but I think he's going to beat the rookie records. And then the most receptions for a tight end in NFL history for a single season is 116. He could hit that. He could beat that as a rookie. So he might not only own both rookie records for receptions and receiving yards. He might beat Zach Ertz now for the record of most receiving or most receptions for a tight end in a single season ever, no matter what. So this is going to be a trophy case rookie season for Brock Bowers.
It's insane when you think about even if you include wide receivers, he's leading all players in catches. And the only 3 guys with more yards are Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin.
It's nuts.
Among all players.
Wow.
This Rookie of the Year race is going to be fun. Because it really, there's a good argument it should be him.
It should
instead, especially
yes.
with Minshew and Ritter and O'Connell throwing him the ball.
Yep.
Imagine if he was pretty much had any other quarterback situation. Jets, maybe. Even then.
There's only one tight end that's ever won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And it was Mike Ditka in 1961.
Bowers has a good argument as any.
It is the best case that we've had since.
Yep.
So we will see. Appreciate everybody watching and listening to the show live. This was an extended show with no bye weeks and all 16 games to go through. A reminder, if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, go get one now. You get 35% off. Monday is the day that we're doing the show. This is the last day of the sale. Get yourself 35% off. SCORE35 is the promo code to be able to do that. Go to pff.com or subscribe.pff.com to get yourself a PFF Plus subscription. You can see all the premium stats that we talked about here on today's show, as well as all the great tools, the fantasy football tools, the mock draft simulator, the free agency tools, all that great stuff. It is pff.com, unlocked to its fullest, and get 35% off if you don't have a subscription right now. It is a fantastic deal. For Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching the PFF NFL show. Great release show here for week 13. We'll see you for week 14, same time next week. See you guys then.